Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the January 13th meeting of the Charahoe Regional School District. We are going to reconvene open session. Gina? Thank you, Chair. We're going to begin with recognitions. Hold on. No, wait. I apologize. We're going to begin with closing and sealing of executive session minutes. I recommend closing and sealing the executive session minutes as required. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Linda, second? All those in favor? No, not unanimous? All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? That is Tyler. Okay, thank you. Disclosure of executive session votes. I'm going to turn that over to our Vice Chair, Laura Chapman.
Good evening, everybody. There were 5 votes taken in executive session tonight. The first vote was to review land options. That vote was unanimous. The second vote was to approve executive session minutes from December 16th. We had 8 in favor and 2 abstentions from Pat Pouliot and Craig Luzon. The third vote that was taken was to approve homeschooling requests. That was unanimous. The fourth vote was to approve the NEA MOU. 9 in favor, 1 opposed. The opposed was Purcell. The fifth vote was taken to go back to open session, and that was unanimous.
Thank you, Laura. So we have a few of our school committee members tonight that are going to participate in the recognition section of our agenda. And the first member is Jess Purcell, who is going to update us on some CALA recognitions. Jess?
Okay, the CALA team and internship coordinator, Kevin Hooper, would like to congratulate the following students for completing the Academy internship program. Antonio Mayo, Lily Smith-Neves, Caden Vonsconels, Cadence Janez, Andrew Spywalk, Mike Geiger, and Gio Santospirito. CALA would also like to thank the following businesses for supporting the program: AS Concrete Forms, Dunkin' Donuts, Eastside Market, Fresh Cup Coffee, Great Line Landscaping, On Point Pizza, and Stop and Shop.
Thank you. So on to sports recognition. We've got our Vice Chair, Laura Chapman, will read the recognitions and acknowledge recognitions in wrestling and boys basketball.
For wrestling, congratulations to Aiden Fallman, 157 pounds, and Enzo Falcone, 106 pounds. Each finished second overall in their respective weight classes for Charahoe on Saturday, January 3rd, 2026, at the Chad Antoc Memorial Tournament at Westerly High School. Charahoe placed 9th overall with 67.5 points in the team standings. Congratulations, guys. For boys basketball, on January 2nd, Dayton Lee scored 27 points with 7 rebounds and 8 assists as Charahoe rallied from a double-digit deficit to hand Moses Brown its first loss of their season, 85-72. Sam Ellis finished with a career-high 14 points, including a pair of three-pointers in the second quarter, when the Chargers scored 28 points to pull within 46-44 at the half, after trailing by 12 after one quarter. On Saturday, January 3rd, Riley Conroy scored 15 points and Charahoe raced out to an 18-10 lead.
Going to acknowledge achievements in girls basketball and indoor track.
Girls basketball. On Friday, January 2nd, Tessa Aiello, 15 points, went 4 for 4 at the foul line down the stretch to seal things in leading Charahoe in a 60-51 victory over West Warwick. Manoki Harris scored 11 points, and Adriana Noka had 10 points for the Chargers, 2-5, who pulled away from a 39-37 lead after 3 quarters. Indoor track. Nick Willowsks tied for 3rd in the high jump, 5-10 for Charahoe at the Ritka Indoor Track Invitational. Ethan McCain took 5th in the 1,000 at 2 minutes 42.75, with Leo Haxton in 8th at 2 minutes 46.67 for the Chargers, while Isaac Graham took 7th in the 600 at 1 minute 28:35, 1 hour 28:35, with Gus Freelove in 9th at 1:30:18. Lydia Tabor placed 5th in the 300 at 43.58.
Thank you, members. We are on to the public forum section of our agenda. We have 3 speakers tonight. Those who sign up to speak will be asked to come up to the podium and state your name and town that you reside. You are welcome to speak about items not on the agenda. Per our public forum policy, the speaker who makes a public statement has the responsibility to be accurate, present facts, present information based upon personal knowledge, not hearsay, and be considerate and allow others to speak without interruption. As the chair of the school committee, it's my responsibility to ensure decorum and be mindful of time management. With that being said, I'm asking community members to refrain from any outbursts or disrupting the speaker who has the floor. Per our public forum policy, this comment time is not to exceed 30 minutes. So we have 3 speakers tonight, so each speaker will each be afforded 4 minutes to speak. So Laura Chapman, our vice chair, will keep time. And when the timer goes off, even if you're not finished, I'm going to thank you and we're going to move on to the next speaker. And thank you very much for signing up tonight. Our first speaker is, you all set, Laura? Okay. Our first speaker is Amy St. Pierre from Hopkinton. Amy?
Good evening to the committee. I just wanted to come in today. I was a little apprehensive to come and speak. I did speak last month in December as well regarding an incident with my daughter and an assault from a male student. I have since waited to kind of follow up with this with everyone in the room, but I wanted to bring this to the attention of everyone. There's been new facts that have come to me that I wanted to share with the group. So as we know, my daughter was assaulted on November 25th. I now am in place of a police report from the Richmond Town Police Department. And this young man is being charged with simple assault and battery on my child after further interviews of witnesses and other administrators at the school. At that time, I spoke with the chief and requested a police report for what I was advised of a additional incident at the school that I mentioned in my meeting here in December as well. And also received that police report that there was an incident where the child actually was brought to the hospital by their parent, as noted in the police report, from an assault at the school dance. The school dance incident is noted in the police report. There was a resource police officer on detail at the location of the school dance, but was not notified in the moment in the incident at the school dance that this occurred, which is quite alarming considering it probably could have been remedied or handled in a different manner. That is a concern of mine and continues to be a concern of mine of the safety of my daughter in the school district. I was apprehensive to bring this to the school committee today because I am finally going to be sitting with our superintendent and the administrators at the school tomorrow for the first time after this incident had happened on November 25th. I requested a meeting twice and was told when I requested my first meeting with the principal to include our superintendent, the school resource officer, to make sure that the safety plan is adequate for my daughter moving forward. And at this point, there had already been 2 violations on this new safety plan with my daughter after the incident of the assault. So my concern is I want to sit down and make sure that the building is adequate and the resources are adequate to keep her safe. After the 2 violations, I was told by my request to the principal that the soonest our superintendent could meet with me was January 7th. This incident happened on November 25th. And ironically, when I brought that and said this is not sufficient, I was then reached out by the first time from our superintendent via email. Happened to be right before the December school committee meeting. So then I waited and I sat on it. I'm like, well, maybe when I bring it to public forum, I'll get contacted and they'll see the severity of the situation. I still wasn't contacted. No immediate action after I spoke to the school committee on December 16th. We are now sitting here, January 13th, 49 days since this happened to my daughter, and I have not sat down face to face with the administration to include our superintendent to make sure my child is safe in the school and the safety plan can be executed effectively, safely, where my child can be at school undistracted and not having to worry about looking over her shoulder every single time she's walking down the hall. She's still nervous, still concerned, still talks to me about it every day and asks me what's going on. The last couple days have been great because the student has not been in the school from what she has told me. She's calm, she's happy, she's her bright light self that she used to be before this happened. I want action moving forward on how this is going to be safe for my daughter. I want action, not words, not a safety plan that states that the children were separated. That perceives that my daughter was involved, and that was day one perception from our administration. She was not involved, she was attacked. And they did fix the safety plan to state that he was removed off of her. That was my first straw where I'm not going to drop this until something is in place to protect my child and other students in the school from incidences just like this in the future. I'm going to stick up for my child and any other child who may not physically have a voice. There may be kids getting bullied that can't stick up for themselves, and they need to have someone that's going to protect them, and that is what our school administration should be doing.
Thank you,
for your
Amy.
time.
Thank you for coming. Tim St. Pierre from Hopkinton.
Good evening, everyone. Tim St. Pierre, Hopkinton. So my wife and I spoke last session, and we didn't stay for the entirety of it. We went home and watched the remainder of it on YouTube. I just want to address some things that were said at the end. It was quoted that the behavioral codes are reviewed every year. I brought it up last session as well. The behavioral code in the student handbook and on the behavioral code itself has not been documented as updated since 2023. Even on the school website, for review and for transparency, the last reference material for the school behavioral code is 2023-24. There's no 24-25. There's no 25-26. I don't know why that is. It was said that it was reviewed every year, and then somebody said by who it was by, and then it was an incoherent. It was like a mumble. I think it might have been some school improvement team's review. I just don't know because it's not documented. So if it's not documented, I don't know if it really did it really happen. And then there was a quote: the changes the St. Pierre's, I think, are looking for is not about the behavioral code; it's about law. There's a difference. But sure, you can pull the behavioral code. That was a response after one of the school committee members brought up the need to address the behavioral code. And it seemed to have been blown off in a condescending manner. And I just don't know what law that is. Is there an RIGL I could be referenced to so I can just look at that myself? There are some things the school really does well. Sports, we talk about sports every school committee. And I noticed that the Westerly Sun is cited as the reference material for tonight's topics. I would offer the Independent out of Narragansett. Let's not forget about the boys ice hockey team. It's a co-op between Charahoe and Narragansett. I would offer that as well. I know that there's people of different persuasions here, and some people think differently than others, and that's fine, and that's everybody's right to do so. But I think coming up with sound policy and having a consequence, an infraction as it's listed in the behavioral code is good practice. And I think the safety of all students, not just, this is beyond our daughter's incident. There are others that are going to occur, and I just want to ensure and offer that we have a sound, transparent policy in which we can follow when infractions occur, and then there are consequences. We shouldn't have to do the school's job by going to the police and having this child actually receive services from, I won't get into that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the superintendent wants to comment on your remarks, Mr. St. Pierre, and I made sure that you finished your thought, and then the superintendent would like to respond, I believe.
I just wanted to double check the law that you wanted us to get to you, so I'm clear. But while you look for that, you had mentioned, I just want to clarify, that in the behavior codes, it states, and I'm reading directly from our policy, this code is reviewed with faculty input and amended periodically by the administration, the superintendent, and approved by the school committee. The code is to be administered consistently with equal enforcement for all. The rules and regulations set forth by the behavior code are intended to follow the policies as set forth by the Charahoe School Committee, as well as state and federal statutes. Any changes in or differences decreed at state and federal levels would take precedence over the Charahoe Middle School Behavior Code. Consequences for infractions will be assigned according to the code listed below. Any modifications of the code and the issuing of consequences will be done at the discretion of the administration and in consultation with the teachers from whom disciplinary referrals originate. So just to clarify, that legal, John Anderson, I'm not sure if John is still here. John reviews this with us as well to make sure that it's reviewed. The school improvement teams do look at it, and if they have no concerns or changes, then we typically don't advise the school committee for review. Mr. Anderson does a very nice job with us. We actually, the last time it was updated, we aligned, the feedback from our parents was the high school and middle school, they seem to be differentiated too much to the point where the transition from 8th to 9th, they felt it wasn't cohesive. So Mr. Zenian was the principal when we did that, and we did a lot of work that way. I just want to make sure if you're looking for a behavior code that says if you do this, this happens, what the Department of Justice has shared in 2017 and back in maybe 2017, you can't predispose discipline. So for example, and most people know this in their own jobs kind of thing. You can't give somebody discipline without ensuring you review and have an investigation of due process. Makes sense. So what you have to do is you have to provide a overview of the level of behavior. So what my advice was to the chair and to legal counsel is that Mr. Anderson sit in on a policy meeting, behavior code, to ensure that the school committee hears directly from legal. That would be public, so you would be able to attend. But first we would review the questions based on, like you have, like what does this work? Sometimes scenario basis help people understand. Because I'm not at liberty to discuss any issue in public because it involves obviously the confidentiality of students. You can share whatever you believe. What I will say is I think I will disagree with some of the information shared tonight. I know Mrs. St. Pierre has a meeting with me tomorrow. I'm happy to discuss with that specifically. But what I want to make sure is that you understand the behavior code, was it confusing because it didn't have like updated years? Is that why you thought?
Yes, in the back, it says, it has all the revision dates, and there are no dates, right?
And it just says, that's why in the parable at the top, the preamble at the top, that second paragraph.
Are we talking about the first page or the?
The first page, yes.
Yeah, I got it right here.
So it just said, if you look at that, it doesn't have the date because reviewed and input, if we make no changes, what we would do is, for example, Ms. Drake or Mr. Zenian would have said to me, do you think we should say this? We would run it by legal counsel, and Mr. Anderson would give us counsel, yes or no. And we have no new input that would make a revision to our plan based on faculty input and amended. The school committee can bring up any policy, and I know Ms. Hopkins has brought it up and Ms. Chapman. But because that a lot of this is based on new laws that people don't remember or didn't realize existed, including the police department, and I met with both Chief Johnson, who oversees this main campus, to review those laws. And he and I are great partners in the work. But in the end, we can't, the law in school is different than the law outside of school. And it's based in statute, and that's why I want to make sure I understand, what RIGL, are you looking for like the suspension law? Are you looking for the way we have to handle behavior?
It says unless it's superseded by state or federal law. So I was curious because you stated last session that what I was concerned about, what you believed I was concerned about, is about law, not about
Suspension law, correct.
Not about, right. So to address the you can't have infractions and consequences. After this paragraph that you read, the next 13 pages go specifically into infractions and consequences.
Correct.
But you can't predispose those.
Correct.
So
We have to
what's
we have to
the-
review the incident, investigate, but
Right.
it gives
Who
the
does the
principals.
investigations?
The principals.
The principals. So would the school resource officer be a
No, that's
smart,
against the
wise?
law. I can give you that law too.
Okay, perfect. So what's the recourse? And the main that I brought up last time, we just wanted a report. We just wanted the incident in writing. And we, based on that incident and how we had to readdress the verbiage of it, because it said that our children were, or there was a child and my child separated, when really that wasn't the case. Our child was assaulted.
So are you
So-
attending the meeting tomorrow?
I don't know.
If not, if you could just let me know exactly what you're looking for, then I can get the documents. I wrote down the RIGLs you're looking for. So if there is something specific that you want to make sure that we either discuss tomorrow or that you want to follow up with me on a phone call, happy to do that too.
I just, the big thing is what do we do when we don't feel as though that investigation is fair and impartial when our child was assaulted, but yet the child is still in the school with our child and also was in violation of the protective order again.
I can't recall if you were on this email, but I responded to Ms. St. Pierre that that's what we call the appeal process. And she had said in the new email recently for upcoming meeting that she wasn't looking for an appeal, but first she wanted a conversation. So just to be clear, it's important, the process in the schools is the principal leads the investigation. I can't lead every investigation because then there would be no way to do my job. So there's all things, that we have to make sure that we do. So in essence, I always review cases. Ms. Brennan-Ninny or any principal would be the lead in their own building. If a parent appeals, then I would get involved.
Right.
So-
There's no appeal process that's generally publicly known
So
that we're aware of. So
Understood.
this was our appeal is just try and bring it up and to the school committee, get some eyes on it.
So they actually, school committee has a policy, and I'll send that to you, the appeals policy for
perfect.
any kind of thing like this. But and I think Ms. Purcell has made this point. The website's not necessarily, if you don't know what something called, like if you called it, people call it like the code of conduct. We call it the behavior code. If you don't have the right word, sometimes it's hard to find. So what typically happens is the principals should have advised you of the appeal process. Okay, so we can talk.
Right.
I can send you the appeals policy.
So I think tomorrow you can have your one-on-one meeting with the superintendent. And I'm
understood.
sure the superintendent will go through the appeals process. And we appreciate you coming tonight and addressing the school committee. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our final speaker tonight or person that signed up for public comment is Chris Kona from Richmond. Chris, how are
Hi.
you?
Chris Kona, Richmond. I'm responding to Vice Chair Chapman's remarks during the last school meeting about a resident who's concerned about the departure of 3 senior administrators over the last year. It's a concern I share well. Obviously, there's a number of reasons why folks may leave a job, and they need to make decisions that help to advance their career and help support their family. But when Mr. Gencarelli left last year, he highlighted an additional aspect, one that should be of central concern to the school committee. To quote Mr. Gencarelli's departure letter, "I have growing concerns about the recent school committee decisions that will impact where this district is headed. I believe it's important to be honest when something no longer aligns with one's professional's values and vision. Please know that a decision does not come from a place of frustration, but rather from a deep desire to be in a space where I can lead with joy, confidence, and purpose, and where I feel I can make the greatest impact." I'm glad to see that Ms. Chapman has started to take an interest in the impact the school committee is having on the retention of Charahoe administrators, teachers, and staff. When the staff perceives that the school committee is not operating in the best interest of this with the students in mind, we run the risk of talented and experienced educators leaving. They are looking at what the school committee puts on and remember, these perceptions are informed by actions, not by statements. They're looking at what the school committee puts on their agenda and what decisions they make. You have a key role to play in creating a stable environment where administrators and teachers can lead with joy, confidence, and purpose. I look forward to seeing how the school committee members will meet this challenge, not only as we continue to seek a new administrator for the high school, but as the community looks to recruit and retain a talented district staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to business. Item 8, approval of school construction capital improvement bond language for legislation. We have Attorney Karen Grandy here to lead us in this discussion. Superintendent Picard, do you want to set the stage before Miss Grandy comes to the podium?
So I would get right up Karen because this is her wheelhouse. While she has taught me a lot in bond legislations over the last few tries, I will always give to her expert experience. But Karen, you shared with me just a few, I think maybe an hour or two ago, the update. Should I forward this to the school committee if they want to reference what you're discussing? Okay, because I want to make sure that this is the right thing I'm doing. So what Karen did was we asked Karen to design the legislation for the upcoming bond referendum vote. So this is really what the question, a lot of this is boilerplate, and a lot of it mirrors the Charahoe Act, as it should. But the only differences you see in the boilerplate is where our Charahoe Act takes precedence. And then any changes that you want to make, this is what she would have to know. But she's done it based on, and I believe she said that the school committee in 2005 had something similar.
Part of the legislation is similar to what we did in 2005. We were trying to deal with a unusual circumstance where the school committee wanted the voters to know more than was just in the four corners of the ballot question. And so we accomplished that by putting it in the legislation that the Secretary of State has to allow this explanation language to be on the ballot itself. So,
Which basically is if there seems to be sometimes that there's concern that how voters perceive or perspective. So that's possible if you have a concern. I think Karen, we had some questions for her around 2:30, 3 o'clock. She gave us that input. She was going to share it tonight, but I am very comfortable with what she's begun as a draft for you all to give your input with the goal. And as you know, session's open now. They like to receive the bills within 4 weeks. Does that mean they won't? No, they will. But we have to, make sure we're moving things along and following the sort of the checklist.
So, Miss Grandy, do you have slides to show us? Is that why this is?
I'm going to forward it to you. She has a language she just sent to me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to forward it to
I
you.
have a draft of the legislation which we can pull up. The legislation really needs to contain certain information and adequately apprise the voters of what they're voting on. So the primary elements are how much the school district is looking to borrow, a description of the project, and any conditions to the issuance of the bonds. All of that is set forth in this legislation. Do you want me to wait, Gina, until you pull it up, or just?
No, I'm going to
going.
actually print it for everybody, and then
Okay.
you explain it, and then I'll go get it.
Alrighty. So this legislation, obviously we've been bond counsel a long time, since probably I think the late 1980s, and so we've worked on many pieces of legislation. So this one is primarily based on the last bond legislation that we drafted for you, because that seemed to work out pretty well for improvements to the Switch Road campus. This legislation would authorize up to $110,200,000 of bonds. I understand from talking to some of your consultants that that number is still being refined in connection with the Stage 2 planning process. And the other thing I typically recommend to clients is that you build in some margin of some cushion, some wiggle room, so that in the event that the construction doesn't start for a couple of years and inflation continues to go up, that you won't find that you are caught with insufficient funds. We have seen that happening recently. We have one client who already had their large bond issue passed a few years ago and now is going back to the voters for some additional funds. And so to the extent that can be avoided, that's a good thing. So it's always better to put in for a little bit more than you actually need, because that doesn't mean you have to borrow it all. It's up to the school district. The voters may approve 110.2, but if that's not what it costs, you can always issue less. So the not to exceed number is a place where I would are on the side of putting in for a little bit more than you think you may need.
May I ask what's your definition of a little bit more?
Well, that's partly up to the design consultants, but I say 5% maybe more than you actually think you're going to need because things change, costs go up. Hopefully they've built in a factor for inflation in the modeling, but still always good to put in for a little bit more than you think you may need. Especially if there's something that comes up that's unexpected, maybe you start, digging excavation and you learn that there's some substances there that you didn't know about. You have to do remediation if that wasn't in the original budget. There's ways that costs accumulate.
Karen, I apologize because I was looking at the printer. Did you mention the Warwick example? Because there's also the North Providence example. I don't know if you did that legislation.
I did not do North
Right,
Providence.
So the Warwick, they want to go to one school because they have the enrollment keeps decreasing, but because of the language in the bond, they're limited, so they cannot do that. North Providence didn't limit the language and it was able to shift priorities based on the needs of what was happening. And they weren't losing enrollment, but the North Providence is 5 square miles, and to have 5 elementary schools is not necessarily the most efficient. So we instead of making 3 schools that would have to be minimized based on cost, they decided to go with 2 instead of the 3 for the second bond that they went out for. But that's just an example of making sure that the flexibility allows the school committee, for example, like if there's something that you want to sort of veer off, you can't if the language is too, and even if it's going to be better for the town and everybody agrees, it wasn't in the way the legislation was written. Because I think Warwick would tell you both the town and the school want that to happen, but the legislation doesn't meet that need.
Yeah, in Warwick, the legislation provided that there would be 2 new high schools to replace Pilgrim and Tollgate, and so there was no way to do a unified school. So our first crack at this legislation had provided for a unified regional elementary school, just one building, but we've revised it so that it provides for 1 or more elementary schools, so that in the event something happens, we put some language in here. Maybe you find that you can't find a parcel of land, because I know that Mr. Zenion's been working long and hard at that.
Well, the land is under confidentiality because of negotiation.
Yes, but if you couldn't find one and therefore
So actually,
you
I think-
needed to have, you couldn't do
Yes.
the unified school, this legislation would let you do a different configuration. So it's 1 or more.
An example would be like we have to have certain land testings. If for some reason the testings of the land that was selected doesn't meet the criteria, you just want to make sure you have your options.
Correct.
Because you actually have, it's called the Green Building Standards Policy. It's on the website. And the policy document page, which I know, to Ms. Purcell's point, is not the easiest website to navigate. So if you type in green building standards, I think Greg and I were looking for it today for Karen, and we were like, what did we call that? Because it's basically the CHPS requirements for any school with any land for the school building authority, and it falls under general law. So we're just following the same thing the state already requires.
Exactly. The other thing that we put in here that we did last time as well was to make the issuance of the bonds contingent on getting state housing aid at a certain level. You are typically eligible for 61% as a regional school district, so we have put that limit in the legislation. If for some reason RIDE came through with 60% instead of 61, then the bonds couldn't be issued. So that's something to pay attention to and make sure that you feel comfortable with. It references, just as an informational point really, that you may be eligible for more. I mean, that's kind of to apprise the voters that you may get a higher ratio, you may get 4 additional points. They don't have the incentive points program on a forward-going basis at RIDE anymore, so you are not going to be getting a lot of additional points for newer and fewer and all
That was my
stuff.
question, Karen. So the chair and I were at a meeting on Friday with the Washington County, South County legislators, senators, reps. And one of the things we talked about was seeking additional legislation, which I'm working on to present with Megan Carter and Tina Spears, a 5% for districts, not just Charahoe, districts that embark on CTE enhancements and renovations or new construction for what RIDE calls CTE for all. So I'm using their term, but I'm asking for a bonus, which did exist differently. It used to be called educational enhancements. With the same idea, we used the same legislation as a backup, and we sort of like bringing it back to the surface. Is there something we could do in here, or it would hurt us if we did that?
I would say that any law that they pass that's going to apply to all school districts will apply to you anyway.
Even if it's not in
irrespective-
here.
Right, exactly. And if they perceive that you're trying to write in a benefit for yourself that others don't have, that might not be well received at the General Assembly.
We'll go the original route then.
Yeah. So the legislation authorizes the issuance of the bonds, has some, again, bond boilerplate about the terms and provisions of the bonds, sinking fund redemptions, things like that. It says the bonds can be issued for a term not to exceed 30 years. In most cases, the bonds actually are only issued for a term of 30 years. However, the legislation for all cities and towns, special legislation like this, typically authorizes up to 30 years.
So I got it up for you, Karen. I got the beginning language.
There we go. So we covered a lot of that.
We're getting the printed
stuff.
copies.
Yes. This screen shows what I was just talking about. Instead of authorizing the financing of a unified regional elementary school, it authorizes one or more, so that we have some flexibility. The plan is to do a unified school, but if that doesn't work out, we don't have to go back to the General Assembly and back to the voters again to get this changed. And yes.
Go ahead, Polly.
The only thing, so if we're doing 110 million and.
Well, that's what Matt Blaze gave us. So that's the
Yeah,
actual
that's
amount.
what it says there. And the one doesn't go through, it doesn't give us an option to do renovations. So by the way that it's reading, it's saying one or more elementary schools. So the construction, furnishing, and equipping. You know what I'm saying? Like. This is a new construction. Yeah, so it would.
You're correct. This
Yeah.
legislation in this form contemplates.
We didn't ask, so that it doesn't say that because that's not part of the stage planning that you had in your contract with SLAM. You had specifically asked them to draft. We do not have a conceptual design for any renovation. We have what it probably would cost you, but we would have to, that would cost you more money if that's what you wanted to do.
Oh, I got it.
And you would have to resubmit and do a new contract with SLAM to do that.
So, to quote my colleague Tyler Champlin, this is going to be wildly unpopular, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Miss Grandy or to the superintendent. But I pride myself on being prepared for reading this in advance. And now I have 12 pages in front of me that I'm supposed to digest and make an educated vote on tonight. And that's going to be really hard for me to do.
No, you don't have to do it tonight.
Okay.
So
No, you don't have to do
we were
it
just
tonight.
explaining that the legislature,
I thought this was this agenda item,
it
which
is, for you to
okay.
have the conversation about what you want her to put in this.
Okay, but
Bond
I
language.
I
Right.
understand, but I
You're
would
not
have,
voting to,
I mean,
you
I,
just need to give her, we need to give Karen feedback so she can look to and adjust what the feedback is. We went based on what was typical Charahoe Act and the money from Matt Blaze and our current plan. So what we need to know is, what would you like to have? Because you do have lots of meetings in January, which is a nice thing.
Okay.
And we've done this, if you remember at the beginning, the budget workshops is 6 to, usually 7:30. You could do this at 7:30 after a budget workshop.
Okay.
For example, or you could add a meeting. All of those are on the table. This is to get so we don't know, you haven't decided or told us any direction yet, other than a unified school, what Slam said. We have the number because Matt Blaze gave us the number, but all we have is the Charahoe Act. So if there's any changes, that's the conversation for the purpose of tonight's meeting.
Right. We'll need to come back and have you pass a memorializing resolution asking the General Assembly to introduce and support passage of the legislation. So this, I think, in my view, is kind of like a work session.
Okay.
So
Where
typically
I'm kind
December
of
would have been our work
highlighting-
session, and now but now we're doing it, we're January, but we knew that we had a lot of meetings so that you had a little bit more time. Karen said, we both, she explained to me, now that these bonuses didn't exist, it was actually going to be a little easier because we're not racing against the clock. So
Understood.
You have time.
Okay, so I just, for the record, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I know that this is a work session. I appreciate the work session. The way that I like to work is I have the document in my hand as part of my packet of materials to read through so that I could use your time wisely and efficiently as part of a work session. So that's just my comment.
So
Sure.
did you guys not get the bond legislation? We gave you everything from the last time. The only change is really this.
But I didn't get this. I don't know.
No,
if
this
we
one
had it.
question. You did not get this question because we actually just revised it again today.
Right, but
Okay,
I don't
understood.
know that they had the original draft.
No, they had the one that we did last time as the example.
Okay, right. Right.
It probably was in your December packet. I thought we put it back out, Angela. It was in the sample. Yeah, we had the sample.
It was just the same.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so
All right,
it
move
actually
forward.
wasn't my expectation that we were going to go through this written draft tonight. I thought I was just going to stand up and talk about the things you might want to think about.
Okay.
So that next time
fair.
you would be ready. I shot it off with the expectation that it would be reviewed, maybe not in detail tonight. But so just focusing on the things that I'd like you to think about. On page 3, if we can go down to page 3, which is in section 2, and scroll down a little bit more.
Section.
Page 3.
Oh, page 3.
Yeah,
Fine.
page
There it
3.
is.
There we go. The highlighted language. That's in blue. Yes, right there. So this was some language that was suggested be included. We didn't put it in the caption of the act because that turns into the ballot question, and it seemed like it would be very long and very complicated. But the thought was that it was important for folks to know that, as I just described a moment ago, in the event the school district is not able at a reasonable cost to acquire property that complies with CHIPS standards for a unified elementary school, then you'll construct one or more schools. And that the facilities will be constructed in accordance with certain standards as to provide for safe, energy efficient, and cost effective schools in accordance with Northeast CHIPS. Right?
Karen, excuse me.
Yes.
Linda, you had your hand up a couple minutes ago.
Go through thank you. No, I was going to say, just so that when we are reviewing it, are there certain areas or certain things that you would like us to focus on? And I'm glad you're doing that.
Yes,
That's- okay.
yes.
That's kind of was my
So,
question.
as we were talking about on the first page, principal amount, project description is very important. The subject to condition legislation, saying we're not going to issue the bonds unless we get 61% state housing aid. I will say that I have on occasion seen that number come really close, so that, you're at like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but say it was 60.5. What do you do then? Sort of thing.
So I want to make sure, because I thought Polly had a good question, and I want to make sure it's clear. So I want to make sure, Polly, that you're able, and you and I have the same language so that we're aligned. So when she asked about the renovation and the unified elementary, the difference is new construction has a formula. And that when Matt Blaze gives you the formula with the money, it's tied to those formulas. Renovation, as we all saw when we did that sort of road show, comes with different set of review because there's no formula to do that. You have to actually hire more architects and do more because there's a lot of concerns of the age of the building. So that's why if this doesn't pass like this, and you know that, and then now you have unified, and if you can't find the land that meets that need, you have two. If you don't do either one of those, you got to go back to bond to do something like Polly has requested, because you got to then we have to start the stage one for a renovation purpose versus a new construction.
Karen.
Please ask any questions so that we're clear.
Okay. Karen?
I understand that we're trying to cover ourselves by saying if we can't,
If the land doesn't meet the standards.
correct, if we can't do the unified school, we're covering ourselves that we could do multiple schools again. I think the word equitable or needs to be included so that if we end up doing more than one elementary school, that they are similar or same.
So just to clarify, that's great. Karen is gonna help me, she'll help with that language. I have no idea how to do that. But what I want to say too is that it's a good point, because when you do this, when you have like the one or the two versus the renovation, you're able to ensure that people understand, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it. So Karen, you keep going, but I want to make sure I say it correctly. So I'm not going to just say something. I'm going to just think about it a little bit longer.
Go ahead, Karen.
My concern is the public perception that we voted on the multiple schools and it failed. And I truly understand the land piece, and cannot thank Mr. Zenyan enough for all of his hard work. I don't want this to fail before it even gets out the door. I understand, but we have to, if we are moving forward with this, we really need to make it clear that our goal is a single unified school and that this isn't some kind of bait and switch.
So one of the things that helped me with Karen, because I want to make sure, I just had to write it down for myself to make sure I said it correctly, was that we all sort of have like PTSD from, because the bonuses made it like a race. Like you had to we were like chasing this thing down. Later on the agenda, you see the reset for stage one. That's why. So by doing the stage one and keeping our line in the queue, you give us time to talk to the community about this before the bond legislation, so it doesn't feel like a race to the top. The difference is that legislation has to be done before June, before they leave the session, because they're not there in the fall. And if we don't get the legislation done, then RIDE will make us do a new stage one again in February, because we won't have enough information.
Just out of curiosity, how much does a stage one application cost?
How much did the last one cost? Well, it usually depends on how much work, so they've gone, our first
I'm
one was
just
like 800.
how many stage ones have we done that we've paid for and?
Right, but you have to then approve a new architect, you have to go RFP, you have to do the process again.
This stage 1 and 2, you're about $1.1 million in.
$1 million.
Stage two, stage one.
So did anyone else have their hands up?
Craig.
And then Tyler.
So going on what you're saying right here, is that still utilizing the dollar figure we had for the one building?
Yes.
Correct.
So we can't proportionally say, well, we're gonna build two because we can't find appropriate land for the one big building, but we can find appropriate land for two smaller, 3 grades in each. But we need an additional 20 million or whatever. I'm just throwing that out there. We can't put that type of wording in this?
Well, you would have to put in at that extra 20 million as part of the 110 million too. So it would be 130 million too. You could put in some language that says, if you only do one school, then you won't borrow the extra 20. But you have to put the maximum amount of
Up front.
up front. But you
Okay.
could put a condition to the issuance of that 20 million to the extent it's earmarked specifically for the situation where you have multiple schools.
Okay, thank you very much.
Am I staying here, Karen?
Yeah, for now, for a minute. And I would say, if we did something like that, we'll get to the point where we do the explanation at the end. We would want to have an explanation of how that works too,
Okay.
within the explanation, because that's unusual.
And I understand that,
Yeah.
but this is basically alluding to, you should be prepared to, the possibility of it.
Yes, yes, and that's, again, because we've been seeing lately where you have a piece of legislation that says you have to do this configuration, and then the community comes back and says, well, can we do this instead? Because that doesn't seem to be working out so well for us, and the answer is no, not without going back to the General Assembly and back to the voters again.
And back to a stage 1 and stage 2 application.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay, Tyler?
No, I mean, I would just echo what Karen said. Just want to be careful of how we put this out there to the public. To be 110% honest, I've talked with a lot of folks in Hopkinton. There's a lot more support for one school than I expected there to be, especially in the, I would say this without offending anybody, the older community, which quite frankly is surprising to me. And actually, I mean, I said this to a few people, we need to do something. We need to rip the Band-Aid off and move forward. So I'm just concerned with how this is going to look to the public, not to say what Karen said, but the bait and switch, the 1 to 2. So that's.
Polly, and then I would just like to weigh in also.
We're gonna fall into the pitfall trap of 1 to 2, okay. We can't get the land for 1, which 2 of the 3? And that's gonna be, yeah.
That's a great question. Just to clarify, we're not saying
Gonna
you would
create
only,
havoc.
this is not renovation.
No,
and
no.
like one school gets, 2 schools get new and 1 gets nothing. It's moving to 2 schools, not 1 school. So you would be closing another school, but we already have 3 properties. We already know that, to your point, the bond did not pass for 3 schools. We've tried that. This says, okay, the only options left are 1 and 2, because I'm going to guess nobody wants 4. Right? So we just had that. So you'd have 1 or 2, or yes, if it voted down, you would have to go into stage 1 and stage 2 for renovation.
Just want to get that out there.
Right, and this currently says 1 or more. It doesn't say 1 or 2. So that might be a refinement that you want to tell me to make.
20 little.
So I concur with my colleague from Richmond's comments, Member Reynolds. We're trying to establish trust within the community. We had a robust discussion about 1 new elementary school and the pros and cons of 1 versus 2. We already voted down 3 and then renovations. So I think we have to be really, really mindful of how this bond language is worded, because people in the community are going to slice and dice it a lot. And there's a lot of, I think, reticence moving forward with any proposal. So I think we have to be really mindful of being good stewards and sticking to, our original plan. And any communication that gets out there should be sticking to our plan. I mean, we voted as a school committee, and it was a resounding vote to move forward with 1 new elementary school. But Karen, I'll let you move forward after the superintendent weighs in.
So after, just to that point, so I forwarded you both versions. This has both in them because it's redlined. If there's something here that you agree on, then that's an easy one for Karen and I to keep. If there's something here, like Louise said, if we want to just say it says unified, if that's something that the committee wants to go talk to some constituents, come back, or you say, take it off the table tonight and you agree on that, then that we know that. So anything you're not sure about, then we can come back with that and you have more time to talk to your constituencies. Anything that you can agree on is great because we know what you all think. We like that language. That looks fine. Obviously, the map blaze numbers I can't change because that's what they are. But in the end, what we really need from you is direction. Which ones don't sit well, you need more time. Which ones are, yay, we all agree kind of thing.
Okay. Laura?
So it just kind of sounds like that maybe having the 1 or more would be a little bit confusing. But from what you're saying is that if we take that, like if you don't put that in there, then you end up having to kind of go back to the drawing board with the bond language itself if you had to change. Is that what you were saying?
Well, I mean, if we take that out, then you will be doing, or you won't be doing at all, one unified school. So the intention here is to try to give you options for flexibility. If you want the one unified school language, yay or nay, that's perfectly fine. We can draft it that way and see where it goes. It would be, really helpful, I think, to know if you have property, because if you know that you have some property, then you can do the one school and you can take out the contingency. So, and again, we do have some time. As I was chatting with some folks earlier about the General Assembly, technically you are considered a city or town for legislative purposes, and technically cities and towns can put in legislation anytime up to the end of the session. There's a earlier deadline in April for any amendments that affect the general laws. Actually, they tell you that they want it in January, but before the April break, you can get in legislation that affects the general laws. This does not. It's specific to the Charahoe Regional School District. So technically it can go in after that. However, what you tend to find is that the farther into the session you go, like if you came in with this in May and asked to have it introduced, it very well might get introduced, but people would be pretty unhappy about it. You might need, special permission, to have it introduced, another vote on the floor, something, to get it in the process.
That's what we did last time. So the speaker asked us to come in and give a brief summary because it was the bonuses, and that's exactly, we had to, and Karen, sort of my PTSD, she said, no, you have more time this time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I took a big sigh, and then because we wanted to make sure that the resubmission of stage one, we spoke with Rye, we spoke with Karen, we spoke with our legal counsel and our OPM, and then SLAM, so that we could ensure that none of this was going to cost us extra dollars. So if you all do not want the contingency, then we put the unified school in and we're done with it. It's just a matter of to make sure that, what we know is what's consistent is things become inconsistent. So we just want to make sure you understood what was happening in Warwick right now, just in case somebody says to you as a constituent, well, what are you going to do if you end up like Warwick? We had all that kind of conversation previous. So right now that's in the news, and we wanted you to be prepared so you could say, oh, I understand, or I talked to my constituents, just we wanted to say this.
Okay. Whose hand was up first? Jess and Karen.
So I'd like just to walk the timeline forward a little bit with this bond legislation. And we know when that has to be submitted. We just discussed that. But if we move forward with, upcoming agenda items to change the stage 2 application to September, I would anticipate that before voters vote in November, they would know if it's one or more schools, because the benefit of moving the stage 2 application forward to September is that we have more time to figure out the land piece, to figure out, because otherwise, if we didn't know what it was in stage 2 and we only, say for instance, it's the unified school, then that's fine. We know it's a unified school. That's what the stage 2 application says. We have the land. That's all settled. The bond legislation may say one or more, but we know that the plan submitted to RIDE is for one unified school. But if between now and then, I think we would know before the vote happens if it's one or more.
Correct.
I don't think it would be, everyone voted to approve this, and now the stage 2 was wrong and it has to go to 2 schools. I think we would know by November.
So the only thing you would probably know, but you couldn't change this in September. So
Right.
Yes, you're correct. The timeline for the school building authority and the state law tells you the way the plans have to work. So you would be absolutely in compliance with all of that. If it doesn't hit the finish line, right? So if you keep it unified and you change your mind September, Karen can't come back in and amend the bond legislation. So that's where we just want to make sure you understand you've got to think about that a little bit. We would suggest you take a little bit more time with that and talk to your constituencies, your town council members, because that's where we want to make sure that it's clear, that we give you the language to clearly explain it. You can ask questions, and I gave all of you and the community like a little FAQ about the other reason for stage one. But in essence, you know, without disclosing anything in executive session, we have to ensure that we meet the standards. So we have to when the land testings come back, we will know. It's just, we may not know by the close of legislation, once everything gets done.
And I would say that if we follow that theory that people will know by November whether you can do one or whether you have to do more than one, we probably would not want to have that first sentence in there, because that kind of makes it mandatory that the only reason that you wouldn't do one unified school would be if you couldn't find appropriate property. So if we were following that approach, I would not recommend putting in that first sentence.
I have a follow-up. Okay, can I continue?
Yes.
My next question is, you know, with the omnibus next week, I know that the agenda says budget, but would it be possible to add an item for this to be discussed? No.
Now that's been something, God rest his soul, Scott Bill Hurst, would have asked for as well. But in the end, there's been a lot of minutes explaining that the omnibus purpose is specifically to adjust the budget alone. Okay. And this isn't one where we're asking for something specific in the way this works. So you got to be really careful because it's the budget presentation, and there's no conversation really about this. We kept it separate for obvious reasons because it has less of an impact. We had to ensure it was in not last year's, but the years before, because we had to do an extensive amount of money because of the stage applications.
Okay.
But we could add an agenda item for the budget workshop.
Yes.
Okay. Karen? All right. Ms. Grandy, continue.
Surely.
Please.
So moving right along, again, on page 5, section 4, a couple pages down.
Yeah, page 70 what?
Page 5.
Oh, page 5.
Section 4. This is just, again, some language that relates to the issuance of the bonds being contingent on getting the state housing aid. So we put it in there because we're supposing that you want to keep that contingency. If you did not want to make it contingent, then we would take this out.
So this is probably a good idea. While it's on RIDE's website, our reimbursement rate for FY 26. An example is the Warwick lawsuit that's out and around CTE tuitions. So it's and RIDE is reevaluating, tuitions. I would be careful that you want to make sure that's in here in case any changes happen. They have to give you this regardless, because that's what it says right now.
Okay, but that's also theoretically subject to change by the General Assembly. It's something to keep in mind. Then page 10, actually page 9. Yeah, section 13. So the way we have drafted this, sometimes we draft it saying it's going to be at an election on a date determined by the Regional School District Committee. In this case, we've drafted it to say November 3rd, 2026, which is this year's general election. People have different theories about whether it's better to go at a general election or a special election. I draw your attention to that.
It does cost more money to do special.
Yes, it does.
And I did not budget for that.
Right.
So I would have to add that.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty, and so then you see the ballot question, which basically tracks the language on the first page. One thing I did not draw your attention to on the first page, if you see on, let's see, well, no, I'm sorry, I wanted to stay where we were, actually, but I'm just saying it appears on the first page as well. Yeah, so starting on page, stop, I think it's 19. And so you'll see it says one or more elementary schools serving the towns and improvements at the Switch Road campus. So the reason that I thought about including that is that this is essentially a one-purpose bond issue. And my experience is with other communities, when you have a single-purpose bond issue, if there's a little bit of money that's unspent at the end, they typically want to spend it on another school project, or something that's related, but it doesn't fit the exact project description. And, therefore, and then they come and say, can we do this? And I have to say, well, no, because it's not within the project description. So I added this for you to think about, whether that was a good idea to include the Switch Road campus, just other improvements there. I don't know if people have anything they want to say about that.
Karen, excuse me, Linda,
Shirley?
did you have your hand up?
We put it in there, but decide, well, we don't have anything that we need to do, and we would maybe save a little bit of money. Do we have to put the money, or once you borrow the bond, you have the money, you have to spend it?
Well, if you don't spend it on project costs, you have to use it to pay debt service.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Good.
And if you wanted to do that, you could put that in the legislation too, if you want to, if that's something that would help the voters say that, I would love that.
That's what I'm saying, to
you
put
know,
it back
Any
in.
unused
Yeah,
funds go
funds
back to the bond.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, well, it currently provides that as an authorized purpose.
Okay.
It doesn't say you must.
That's my point, yeah, so you don't
What I'm
have
saying
to.
is, you all have the right to do that, even if it, because it already says that.
That's what I'm saying.
You make that decision.
Correct. You would decide that when the time came.
Right. The one thing that I want to make sure the committee understands, which I think you do, I just want to make sure that I clarify it, because people come in at different points of the conversation. So when we talk about the, it's my brain fog as I get older and it gets later. I want to make sure I say it correctly, right? I want to make sure that when we talk about the projects and we talk about the debt service and things like that, the more that we can explain as a constituency that you have the ability to make lots of decisions. Once the voters decide, building committee will oversee. So it's really important for you to be thinking with your town councils that when we talk about the DFM, the district financial meeting this year, I will be putting that on the agenda to make sure that we're aware that those appointments, as they come up after the election, will be very important to seeing. So if you have a purpose statement, I would make sure you're as aligned as possible with your councils, because they will appoint 3 members each, and then you all will have representation that you vote on at your subcommittee meetings. And you'll do that after the November election, so you just want to be mindful of that.
Okay, thank you.
Righty, and then moving along to the next page. 10. Again, in the highlighted language, this is what I was talking about before. So the ballot question, traditionally, what happens is the ballot question, which is this language that's all on caps on the first page, you don't have to go there because it repeats it above. Scroll up a little bit to the all caps language on page 9.
On 9?
Yeah, on 9.
Sorry.
So you can see that is the form of the ballot question.
One
Yeah.
or more?
Yeah, right, yeah. So
Line 18.
starting on line 15.
15.
Actually,
Okay, hold
right.
on.
So that is the ballot question.
Got it, so I'm gonna highlight all
So we
of-
basically copy and paste that, and that's what gets put in the voting booth.
Okay.
So
okay.
15 through
It looks like 4.
through 4 on page 10.
Correct. So that's your ballot question. To the extent that you want to say more about it, because there's a lot of information that comes out in the press, et cetera, newspapers. The Supreme Court has said that that information is not really relevant. What's relevant is what's on the ballot. And you also are required to put out certain voter information regarding the projects. for them to consider and what it's going to do to the tax rates, et cetera. And we as bond counsel suggest that you don't deviate from this. So to the extent you have other great ideas to expand upon, we say don't deviate because this is legally what is the relevant language.
And this gets signed off by each town clerk, Karen, myself, like this, once you all make that decision, and once the legislation approves what you approve, then we work with the town clerks to make sure that the November ballot is accurate.
Correct. Now, if you can go back to page 10 again, to the highlighted language. Now, we discussed putting something in this legislation that would require a particular explanation to be on the ballot. I will tell you the Secretary of State's office does not like this, especially for general elections, because the ballots tend to be pretty long to begin with, and they're trying to cram everything into as few pages as possible. So with that caveat, I have put this language in. This is also something that you could put in your voter information booklet to the extent you have one, or your advertisements, your notices regarding the ballot question. So it doesn't necessarily have to be here, but if we don't put it in the legislation, then the Secretary of State will not put it on the ballot.
Right, and just a reminder, this is the CHPS and the North, that's the policy, we call it on our website, Green Building Standards. You approved that back in 2024, which is a requirement of the School Building Authority.
Right, so it's not necessarily necessary legally, I think.
It just helps explain to the public.
Right, so this would be something you might put in so that they would see it on the ballot and it would make them feel better about the legislation and the bond issue.
Excuse me, Karen. Member Hopkins, did you have a question?
I do, and back on page 9, further up, where you have a list of and improvements at the Switch Road campus, including but not limited to costs of demolition, design, health and safety projects, playgrounds, landscaping, paving.
What line are you on? I'm sorry.
20, 21, 22.
Yeah, right in that highlighted stuff. Can we add in there sports and athletic fields so it doesn't get construed as landscaping? Because it's not.
No, because a RIDE doesn't approve fields.
Ugh.
Well,
Not part of our new, they
Well,
won't,
you
you can say it, but they may not, you
Well-
haven't asked that yet in the stage 2, and they typically, especially if we say we're gonna work with the towns, they say, well, that's not the purpose of the bond. It gets tricky, but what I'm gonna do is I actually, I think that may be a good question, like when we have our necessity for school construction, we may wanna bring in RIDE to have that conversation, maybe for an upcoming update.
Well, so then my follow-up question
Can I
would be-
say one more thing
yeah,
about
go
on
ahead.
that point, which is that you are allowed to finance sports fields with bond proceeds. They're just not reimbursable by RIDE. So it's 100% on your
us.
nickel.
Okay.
So
Polly, did you have a follow-up?
Well, that's kind of a pickle situation.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna have, I do, that was my nickname as a kid, so. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, the voters are gonna say, didn't we just approve a giant bond for the Switch Road campus?
No, we reduced it because it was 30 million and we went to 15 because we knew we had to do this.
So, but we live in a very frugal corner of the state.
Yes, we do.
And I'm wondering if they're gonna see this and be like, what? Like, didn't they get enough?
and also these descriptions of the demolition, design, health and safety, that relates to the entire project, including the elementary schools, not
And
just Swish Road.
If it's okay with Polly, I would think, if you could hold that question, because we have a building committee update that I think may tell you know that they will tell you, we don't have enough money to do what we want to do, because we're doing our best, but things take time. And to get the reimbursement, you have to follow the rules. If you don't want to get reimbursement, you can do whatever you want. And some districts do that. But here, like you said, we are frugal. So our towns don't typically like if we were spending dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that covers what I wanted to cover. as far as things for you to think about, concentrate on, focus on, make some decisions about, because a lot of it is not super optional because it is required by state law that you say certain things.
Karen is really great, so if there's questions you would like me to reach out with her for when we do our follow-up, please just share that with us.
So the agenda says approval of, so,
You don't have, well, you can, unless there's something you definitely all agree to right now, you don't have to do any approval.
no,
That approval language, your agenda always says you can approve. And sometimes, I was a little busy, so I just let the approval go because it's not a big deal. But you can do anything with the agenda item. It doesn't have to be approved tonight unless
should
there's
we
something
make a
you want
motion
to.
to table approval, just to
You can
keep it?
table it.
Before we make a motion to table, are there any other points that we want to talk about relative to other language that we potentially want to include in the bond language? Pat?
I would prefer, this is my personal opinion, I would prefer to have something under contract, and then we know where we're going, and then we can just clean this up, because I don't want to, go back to what Karen said, mislead the public. So if we have something under contract, then we know we have the property available, then we don't have to worry about all this additional stuff.
So can I,
Yes, so, go ahead.
approximately March 15th, we have to, this language should be really submitted, correct?
That's
I mean, that's give or take. a
how
little
it
bit.
should go, yeah.
So
yeah.
anything after March 15th, you're then playing with the Hill and whether or not they're going to put it on the floor, and if they don't, then it's not going on the ballot.
Well, I would say to be completely in an orderly fashion, we should have a resolution of this committee by about March 15th. It really needs to be in the legislative data system before they go on break in April.
So I don't believe you will have what you're asking for by that date.
And the budget, again, to the chair's point, you have the budget workshop where you can add agenda items. That's why it's important for us to know what would be the most helpful so that we can do, if you say, don't do that at necessity for school, because necessity for school is different than building committee. It really is a more advisory, if you will, because you all make the decisions. You can avoid that, and we can ask, RIDE to come in for any questions. But they don't deal with bonds. They deal with the rules, kind of thing.
Any other input that we want to discuss to give Karen some direction? Tyler and then Diane.
So as I said, I've talked with a lot of folks about this. When we made the decision as a committee to move forward with one school, I was surprised by the amount of people who thought it was a good idea. I mean, again, I also think it's a good idea at this point. The one school makes most sense fiscally. One thing I have heard, and many people, a good handful that I've talked to have asked, is discussing the 1/3 split of the 3 towns. With a unified school, having the 3 towns split the cost equally instead of using the Charahoe Act funding formula. So I'm just going to put that out there. I think we have that ability in the bond language to put, if we would like.
That would have to be in the legislation.
In the legislation, right?
Because then it would override the Charahoe Bond Act,
Right.
the Charahoe Act for this particular bond issue only.
Okay. Diane.
I know in, previous discussions, previous bond discussions, we talked about having all 3 towns approving the bond, okay? There's been some upsides, downsides to it. I've heard people go back and forth on it. It's a split thing, but, like Tyler said, having all 3 towns share that expense, I think would be better than having all 3 towns approve, because I think if all 3 towns accept the expense, then there won't be a need to have all 3 towns approve. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if we get that bond language in that all 3 towns should split the cost equally, I wouldn't need necessity for all three towns to approve. But if that particular bond language doesn't go in, I would request that all three towns approve.
So okay, so we've got, yep, Laura and Craig.
Just a question on that. Is there as far as the main campus, this is the shared, regional middle school, high school. Is that, Craig, maybe you know the answer to this. Is that split evenly? Third, a third? Is that split evenly, a third, and third?
Well, the funny thing, I was doing some math before this meeting and,
It's not?
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
we have 23.13% of the students, so that's what we pay on.
You did do it for the CALA project.
No,
No,
No.
2010.
that was 2010. Cala was, Cala
One at a
was,
time.
no town paid more than a third.
Oh, that's
The
right.
district
Yes.
paid the difference.
Right.
But it was so small, we could afford to do that.
Thank you, yep, thank you.
Okay, so Craig, did you have another comment?
Cala, wow, where'd he go? I was expecting this to arise, and I personally would suggest that the three town councils sit down and discuss this, and this should not be in the domain of the school committee.
If there's so it's not on the agenda, but one of the things that you can do, because it's bond legislation, and I had this conversation quickly with the chair, but we have lots of conversations, so just, if you don't remember, that's fine to say it. We talked about, you could, and you may remember we did it 2 bonds ago, the resolutions, Richmond and Hopkinton were not necessarily on board with getting a resolution that sort of supports a project or doesn't. They don't have to be, because you operate like a city and town. But sometimes you can draft not a resolution, but a letter stating what you're thinking about and asking for feedback. Because I think, and I'm not playing John Anderson, but I think based on the way the agenda item is written, because it's bond council, you could be seeking advice and input, and you would love to see them meet, but then you would ask me to draft that letter to the councils. That's something you could do, as long as it's focused on the bond legislation and that what advice you're seeking.
Okay. So Craig, are you willing to make a motion to ask Gina to submit a letter to the town councils to discuss this?
That's a great suggestion, and I stand by that motion.
Okay. Okay, so we have so it is a motion for the superintendent to draft a letter to all 3 town councils, asking all 3 town councils to discuss evenly splitting the cost of one new elementary school.
And I can have the draft prepared for a budget workshop so you can review it.
Tyler?
Are we voting on that, or are we discussing still?
That's a motion.
It's a
It is a motion.
All right.
So we have a motion and we had a second, right, Madam
So
Clerk?
your motion may want
Tyler?
to say the bond.
No,
Don't
it
get-
has to. It has to be the bond because of
No,
the.
but she's getting into the language of the bond, which may or may not be the language of the bond.
But we can say just the potential length, because remember, this is the workshop, so as my school committee hat, I'm pretty sure we won't file any OMAs based on the language.
So Madam Clerk, can you reread that, please? Because we have a motion and a second on that.
Motion was for the superintendent to draft a letter to all 3 town councils to discuss that all 3 towns will split the cost evenly for the bonds.
Of the bond.
Of the bond.
The bond
Of the
legislation,
proposed bond.
bond language.
I would say for unified school.
I would, if you could just use the agenda item, that would be great. Because then you make sure the OMA, all you have to say, if I may, the motion to request town council to, that it is at their discretion, but you highly recommend that they convene a conversation that you are thinking about language in the bond and would like their feedback on the following. Which, and then I would explain the 1/3 example that you just gave.
So I'm not trying to get in the weeds here, but we had a motion and a second on specific language. So do we need to rescind that and then
I don't think. Angela
reintroduce?
could reread it, I can.
Could you, Gina, I apologize, we were going a little fast for me.
Heather, just tell me what the original
The
motion was.
original was for the motion for the superintendent to draft a letter to all 3 town councils to discuss all 3 towns splitting the proposed bond evenly for the one unified school.
As it, and all I would add then, as an amendment is, as it relates to bond legislation.
Okay.
Agreed.
So we have a motion and a second, not what Gina's amendment was yet. So we can add that in a second.
I can't amend, but I can you can
recommend
you-
that
somebody else
amendment.
can.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on that. All those in favor of that motion?
With the amendment?
No, we'll get to the amendment in one moment.
But I thought we do the amendment
You do the amendment.
first,
Yeah, you do the amendment first.
then the
Okay.
vote.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
It makes, doesn't make any sense, but that's how you do it.
so I make a motion to amend
My motion.
the motion to include what Gina just said.
Second.
Okay? All those in favor?
Aye,
Unanimous.
And now you do the.
now the motion,
Okay, so is all those in favor of the original motion?
as amended.
As amended. There we go. All those in favor of the original motion as amended? Unanimous. Okay.
I think I'm done for the evening.
Thank
Yep.
you, Karen. I
Okay,
appreciate
thank
all
you,
your
thank you.
input.
Nice seeing everybody. Thank you for your comments.
On a lighter note, we're going to talk about the budget.
I know, Sarah.
Hold on. We've got Larry and Karen.
I would
this.
like to make a motion to move B and C Flopham, or Mr. Coulter can do his presentation and get out of here.
Perfect. Oh, yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move the building committee update first before the budget presentation. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. So is Mr. Coulter here? There he is.
Good evening.
So let's make sure that we are giving Mr. Coulter our attention, school committee members.
So we're just gonna wait for Kathy to put something up on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Bill Coulter. I'm the vice chair of the building committee, and I represent the town of Charlestown. We as a committee first met just a year ago. Tomorrow it'll be for our first meeting. We have a $15 million bond that we're stewards of those funds. And so these projects that are up on this PowerPoint right now, you'll see there's 10 of them, with 5 of them that have a yes for completed, and the other 5 are, the wheels are turning on them. Some of them closer to completion, some are not yet started. So I'd like to say that we never got the bond approval, our bond, closed on our bond, I'm sorry, not approval, until July. And so we didn't start spending the $7.5 million of the first portion of the bond until then. On those completed projects up there, you'll see that we spent $2.3 million. And that's a $760,000 savings from what was projected that we were going to spend. We have 5 more projects started or waiting for the materials to start that'll total $3.75 million. And of those projects, the roof mechanicals at the Career and Tech Center are, that's closest to completion. And we're projecting that we'll have more than $1 million savings on that. So we've tried hard, but I have to explain that we've been trying to be aggressive on this to move forward. Costs are not going to get cheaper over the next 5 years. And so that's why we accelerated the process and did what we have done here. So once all these projects are completed, we we'll spend $6.8 million, less the savings. That was the projection. And we're going to have to move forward to close on the second portion of the bond, another $7.5 million to complete things. I'm going to say that, this committee has worked well together. When I first got on it, I didn't really understand it's a building committee. And we had nothing to do with the decisions that were made. Those decisions were made here in this forum. We're administrating these funds, and we've worked well together. We've talked a lot about wants and needs, and we've put our priority on needs. And with that being said, if there's any questions, I'll answer what I can.
May I just give a comment?
Yes, of course.
So I want to thank Mr. Coulter and the entire building committee. They really have done great work. Mr. Zenyan, Jason Sullivan have been instrumental in ensuring that they have those at the table that can help them understand the needs. In particularly, they're not only being just fiscal stewards, they're really understanding the safety piece of what we have to do and the educational piece. Some of the projects are on the CTE, expansion of our welding classroom. To be able to expand something that we all know is growing is really important. So as you know, RIDE requires the building principals where the projects are involved to be a part of the conversation. On the building committee, they don't get votes. They get votes on necessity because it comes back to you. But I really want to say thank you to the building committee for listening to the admins and explaining why certain projects not only focus on safety, but educational enhancements to ensure that our programs meet our current student needs. So thank you.
Thank you.
And is there anything else?
I just wanted to ask, are there any other members of the building committee here tonight?
Just the ones from the school committee.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks very much for your service and good work. Yeah.
And if you'd like, I could come back in 6 months and report on what we've completed to that point. And at that point, we will be looking to close on the second portion of the bond. So,
Did anyone else have any comments for Mr. Coulter, Laura, and Karen?
Is the spreadsheet available to the committee members or?
It will be, once he presents, typically, Mr. Denny and I would forward you.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to comment that being on the building committee has been a learning experience. I appreciate all of the great conversations that we've had, all of the very hard work that Mr. Zenyan and Kathy have done, and Jay, to keep us all informed and to host as many meetings as we have had. I appreciate a couple of members stopping us a couple of times and reminding us about wants and needs and about being fiscal stewards of taxpayer funds. It's been a great committee to be a part of.
Anyone else? Polly.
In the spirit of your wife, if we saved $763,000, how big of
You
a
don't get a
barn
horse.
and how many horses can we
No,
get?
you don't get a horse.
I'd like to point out one thing now. So these projected costs, this bond has a 5-year lifespan. So these numbers are high now, but they're projected out for 5 years where they might be borderline covering at that time. So that's why the mentality has been to accelerate and do what we can as fast as we can, so we can get the biggest bang for our buck.
Right, so what I want to make sure everyone understands is that while we appreciate that, Mr. Zenyan, what he helps the building understand is the process with RIDE. This stage 3, this is our first stage 3 since I've been here. And it's a learning curve for a lot of people to really sometimes, because if you don't put things into a portal correctly, and Mr. Coulter knows this all too well, RIDE can reject your project, and they have. And then we've had to come back to the drawing board, and we've gotten there, but sometimes, for example, the OPM cost is one of those examples where I've said this to Mr. Zanni, and I'm happy to say it in public. While we want to save money, you don't want to bite your nose to spite your face. You don't want to say, I don't want to spend $5,000 on an OPM on a big project that has to meet compliance, because then you risk reimbursement. So that's where we want to make sure that the reimbursement piece comes into play. So Mr. Zenyan leads that role to make sure that they understand that if we don't do that piece of the puzzle, the project doesn't get reimbursement. So sometimes you have a savings, but one wrong step and they're all over us. But that's why we want to make sure, and thank you, because Mr. Zenian has shared with me at those meetings that the building committee has been very responsive and understanding. Not that we don't love how it works or understand it all the time, but we recognize that these rules were into place because somebody was naughty in a district. And, but I want to say thank you for the understanding of the entire committee as we work this process and being so thoughtful about it.
Good. I just, we as a group wanted to make sure that you understand and that the taxpayers understand, what is going on here, how we're trying to be responsible. And the process isn't easy, but it's working.
So Karen, thank you for inviting Mr. Coulter, and Mr. Coulter, thanks for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, next is the fiscal year 27 budget presentation. Superintendent Picard will be taking the lead.
Okay, while that presentation gets posted, I would like to just begin by saying welcome to everyone for this year's budget review. I want to thank the entire Charahoe. Oh, I'm so connected? I thought I was, how did that happen? Let me go like this. I did disconnect. I did that. Yeah.
Okay, now you're all set.
Okay. So good evening again. Welcome to the budget overview. And I do want to thank our entire team. This is a process that never ends. Sometimes we say we start in October. We really don't. Really, October is just a re-envisioning. So for the school committee members, when we talked about like the budget subcommittee, it really starts now for you to think about this process beginning today. The presentation that is designed for you tonight was meant to be it should look different because it involves a different group of school committee members who have come together. And what I've tried to do is create a presentation that speaks to all of what you've been asking and make sure that we get clear about what really would be helpful. So this is not the end. This is the beginning of the process where what this budget will do will represent our Vision 2029, Vision 2026 sunsets in December 2026. And your state accountability data is always a year behind, which is why your visions have to be a year ahead so you can continue to refine. So I just want to say thank you to all of the principals, secretaries, clerks, that teachers that give us input, feedback, and really make sure that we can come in front of our community with a very robust budget, but explain that sometimes the complexities that come with education funding. The governor is presenting tonight, so I just want to remind everybody that this is preliminary because it's based on state projections. My ask of our representatives is please don't give us less. At minimum, give us what you gave us last year. So that's what they told me. They will try to make sure very hard they do. I will have points in this opportunity where we can share advocacy moments, and many of our communities say, what else can we do? My ask of the school committee is to be thinking of not just fiscal stewardship of tonight, but how all of you can help me become a stronger advocate at the State House by allowing me the opportunities to really be present so that you all can focus on local and I can focus on state, but when you need me, bring me in. But I think that we are at the point where we are becoming much more aligned through our councils and our school committee, and I think this school committee is working very well to be able to begin this conversation in a very productive way. I think our transparency and our accessibility are central to our budget process, and we encourage ongoing review and dialogue as we move forward. We always welcome questions. As you know, this is more for you to sort of just take stock in what we're saying. So you can think about, we've moved the omnibus to be before your budget workshop. So you have time to sort of digest this, listen to your town councils and your constituency, and then have your workshop. And that's kind of the process. So the budget subcommittee wants feedback on things like that too. Like, does that still make sense? Does that still meet our needs? So if you want to be doing both in tandem, that's always a great opportunity. So this year we changed the budget book a little and we gave you the presentation. The school committee received it via email. It will get posted tonight on the website. But what you will see is exactly, and if there's any changes that the committee asks me to make, I will make those for the public presentation to ensure that this represents what you all need it to represent. So in spirit of that, I'm going to read the letter into record differently than taking sort of a page out of the chair's book, to make sure that we can double down and remember our purpose. So every year in the budget book, there was a budget memo from the superintendent. So this year, I'm going to read it aloud instead of doing my overview. The FY27 budget marks an important milestone for the Charahoe Regional School District as the first year of Vision 2029, and there should be copies on the table for anyone who would like one. It represents a deliberate shift from planning and reflection to implementation and measurement. This budget strengthens systems that already serve students well while ensuring they are coherent, aligned, and sustainable over time. As part of our ongoing governance and financial oversight, the district's financial systems were reviewed with no findings or recommendations. This confirms that Charahoe's fiscal practices are sound, transparent, and responsibly managed. The FY27 builds on this strong foundation, recognizing the stewardship of public funds is essential to maintaining trust and long-term stability. While enrollment trends across Rhode Island reflect a gradual decline, the needs of students and schools continue to evolve. Purchasing decisions are therefore guided not by enrollment alone, but by the supports and structure required for students to succeed in today's educational environment. This budget reflects a continued shift toward investments that strengthen instructional coherence, student support systems, and organizational alignment. At the core of this budget is the district's multi-tiered systems of support framework. And in your words, it's a way we differentiate for every student. MTSS guides how Charahoe supports students academically, behaviorally, and socially through an integrated system rather than disconnected initiatives. The FY27 budget prioritizes strong Tier 1 instruction for all students. Tier 1 means core instruction, grade level standards, with a measurable focus on early literacy, numeracy, classroom engagement, and consistent instructional practices across all schools. Progress will be monitored through universal screening data, classroom-based assessments, and student growth measures. For students requiring additional support, the budget strengthens Tier 2 systems by supporting timely, targeted interventions and progress monitoring. Effectiveness will be measured by the percentage of students demonstrating adequate response to intervention and successively returning to Tier 1 supports. For students with more intensive needs, Tier 3 systems remain coordinated and responsive, with success measured through individualized goal progress, reduced crisis-driven responses, and improved attendance and engagement. The budget also reflects a continued commitment to alternative learners and flexible pathways. Vision 2029 affirms that student success does not follow a single path. The FY27 budget supports learning environments and structures that increase student engagement, credit attainment, persistence towards graduation. Outcomes will be measured through on-track indicators, credit completion rates, and re-engagement of students at risk of disengagement, and successful transitions to post-secondary education, career pathways, military service, or their individualized plans. Vision 2029 will emphasize systems thinking as a guiding principle. The FY27 budget advances this work by aligning professional learning, data use, student supports, and operational practices. Professional learning investments are tied to measurable improvements in instructional practice. Consistency of our MTSS implementation, again, that just means making sure we accommodate students' needs, and staff capacity to respond to those student needs. Implementation will be monitored through fidelity reviews, cross-school consistency checks, and analysis of outcome data to ensure resources produce the intended impact. As the first year of Vision 2029 will begin with this budget, the budget establishes clear expectations for accountability and continuous improvement. Student growth, engagement, attendance, and responsiveness to intervention will be reviewed alongside system-level indicators such as consistency of our Tier 1 practices, effectiveness of our intervention cycles, and alignment of services across all schools. These measures ensure the community can see not only where resources are invested, but how those investments translate into meaningful outcomes for students. The FY27 budget reflects confidence in the district's direction and responsibility in its planning. It honors the strengths of Charahoe School, staff, and systems while positioning the district to respond thoughtfully to future needs. The budget is not an endpoint, but the beginning of a new strategic chapter focused on coherence, clarity, measurable impact, and continuous growth. Thank you for listening for my overview. And now we'll get into the meat of it. So, as I stated a minute ago, the governor's budget is preliminary. He's letting us know tonight. Typically, we will see that budget impact usually by Thursday, Friday, or we start hunting it down with I start texting representatives, did you get it yet? Can you give it to me? Because they have to go live, and I wait for that FY27 to go live. So with that being said, tonight's presentation reflects, I believe, a shared commitment between school committee and administration to put students first. The chair started this session, if those of you weren't ready, asking us to reflect in the new year, to work together, and I believe the collaboration will be very important as we embark on our budget season. This budget continues strong academic and operational results, and it reflects discipline, not expansion. Although the chair said to me, you know, what's on the short list that didn't make it? While there's things that, and we'll get into that, you know, the wants and needs. And I'm hoping through this presentation, you can see where we had to give, although you don't want to, you have to sort of outweigh the pros and cons. And we had this conversation about other things and nothing, when you're cutting anything for students, there's always going to be someone who says it's needed, and they're not wrong. It's just, if I had all the money, I could do everybody's priorities. And this will show you, based on what the school committee has asked us to do and how we're able to coordinate that information. So school committee members hold different perspectives, as we know, but those perspectives are really valuable to us as administration because it helps us align and speak to the constituencies that are asking questions and maybe don't understand the complexity of educational budgeting. So if we could go to slide 2. So I often talk about the achievements, and this is an area where I really want to make sure, if the chair doesn't mind, she calls it like our mission moments. And I love that terminology, and I think what we can say is, what I would like to ask all of you is, there are so many wonderful things going on in Charahoe. And if we haven't said it at the school committee, I want to make sure that we can do that for you. So when you know of a mission moment that you think is important for us to share with our community, letting us know that to highlight that in a more strategic way is also very beneficial. And we've done that. We bring in students, when we want to talk about the strategic plan, so you can see it live. And that's why I believe my happy place is with the kids. So if that's something that's always helpful, I can do more of that. But please think about that as a way, because that's where the investment is. Our investment is our teachers, our students, and understanding what they need to move through a path that delivers strong outcomes. Slide 3. So I do believe Charahoe delivers strong outcomes. The examples you just saw on that second slide is a testament to that. So now this talks about high results and return on investment. We are very proud. This is another, what I believe is a mission moment, where not only did our audit come back with no findings and no recommendations, but the League of Cities and Towns last year and this year had a presentation that recognized us through the RIDE's data dashboard and the comparison across the state, that we not only deliver strong outcomes, we have a high return on investment. So quadrant 1 is called the quadrant of success, where Charahoe lands since it started last year, both years. So that's another mission moment that I think the school committee should be proud of and the district should be proud of. And that's thanks to our finance team, our teaching and learning team, because we really are a well-oiled machine. And really allowing our teachers to do their jobs and invest in their classrooms is where we want to make sure we're moving our needs from facilities to instruction. So one of the things I think that's important is that the evidence of where this all comes from. So we'll be on slide 4. So this is an example of fixed cost systems. A lot of us will hear about why does the budget go up? How is this important? I want to give you an example about transportation. So transportation costs in Charahoe, we're 128 square miles. The next largest district with busing would be Exeter West Greenwich. So as two regional districts, we're investing millions of dollars in transportation. And oftentimes we have people compare us to Barrington. Everybody compares themselves to Barrington. So the chair and I were at a legislative meeting and we talked about the fact that Barrington, they have their walking distance. So they're not spending the same amount of money on transportation. So while we're fighting to get regional allocation dollars for transportation, and by the way, our state legislators over the last 3 years have done a great job. We have received more money every year since Representative Carter and Representative Spears have come to the table. Representative Kennedy really did lead the charge, and Senator Algier before he retired. And then Representative Kennedy continues just to keep us afloat. But when Megan and Tina came in, he had support, and now we have more money than before. And if we can keep it the same, that's what we budgeted for. So that's the goal. So there's an advocacy point that I need from all of you. I need us to talk to our senators, representatives, to give them support, not to shake our fingers in their faces, because they are doing the work. The state funding has gone up. And we were on a top 10 list that I don't like to be on. But I think it's because the state funding formula doesn't necessarily understand rural and regional. And I think that's where your advocacy comes in. The needs of a rural district do not mirror. And I have implicit knowledge about this. I am somebody who worked in Providence, and bus stops are not the same. There's no sidewalks. Our kids can't drive right down the road or take a bicycle. Some can, some do, by the way, but not all can do that. It's not possible for those that live on our outskirts. So it is even with the funding formula, you saw the Rhode Island Foundation put out a report. That report is, I think, well-intended, like most of us are, but it misses the boat, because it still doesn't take into account rural or regional. It's looking at the same pot of money and giving it to, for example, more urban communities, which they need. But this is where I ask for advocacy. We have a building like CALA that I need to make sure has its due diligence. I need the representatives in our state and our Department of Education to support systems like our CALA, alternative learners, in general, like they support them at the charter schools. We did not see that level of, I was very disheartened that the Board of Education has still not stepped foot on this campus after 6 years of superintendent, and I personally invited all of them at our meeting in August, and I didn't even get an email back. So this is not us against our senators, us against our representative. This is about us advocating to all of our legislators to make sure RIDE is listening, and to make sure the General Assembly is listening, that while I believe everybody's well-intended, the Southern County, the Washington County, because I've learned that South County is not a real thing, it's Washington County, but we call ourselves South County. We are coordinating as a cohort now to really make an impact, so we can show people that that formula isn't equitable, because they don't understand how regionals work. That bonus doesn't even, while I need regional funding, it's not enough. It doesn't cover what we need. And that's where I think we need to be really mindful. The Unified Elementary School will definitely support and refine that, but not if they do what they want to do with the new funding formula request. I have heard that it's not going to go anywhere this year, but that's where I need us all to pay attention. This is where the advocacy letter, if you can't go, give a letter. When we will be sort of highlighting some of those bills as they come up to show you where we need the most advocacy. I've asked the school committee to be thinking about myself at the State House once a week so that I can be a presence. They do know me. And when I'm down there, we make an impact. And I think it's because they know we're passionate, but we're getting results. And RIDE is using CALA as an example, but they're not changing the state accountability system. They're still, what's the word, Dr. Camilla? They are holding us accountable to standards that not holding charters accountable to. So I'm gonna go on to the next one. So slide, there we go. So the other question we always has is, where do the dollars go? And I promise they go into investments. So Yeah, that's my little. So if you look at this slide, there are buckets in the budget book that the school committee have become uniquely aware of. Dr. Camilla, Mr. Zenny and I have discussed, helping you thinking about the numbers. Like Tyler and Ms. Chapman are very good at like 5100 series, they know its salaries. I don't expect everybody to know that. So we figured out for the budget workshop, we're going to give you a little table that reminds you. But what I want you to hone in on is this is the 4 big buckets in our budget where our dollars are invested. Staff and benefits. And I'm really proud. The school committee did a very nice job, led by Diane Taft as the chair, Louise Dinsmore, Laura Chapman, and Pat Pouliot, negotiating a contract that invested in our teachers and saw a slight increase. I think it was just about little more than 2% overall for 5100 series. I was surprised because based on movements, we were able to give a good investment, but show little impact on our budget. So that was great. So I thank the school committee for that because it helps us stabilize our teachers and understand that we value them. And it was some of the largest raises that they've ever seen. And I'm proud of that with the 2.65 increase, knowing that inflation is 3.2, that's not an easy task. So that's due to this committee. So the more that we can help our community understand that this school committee are good fiscal stewards. My responsibility to all of you is to ensure that I give you the information you need so that you can work with facts and that I can design it that way. So if you go to the next slide, Dr. Camilla. So reductions and reallocations. This is an area where people tend to glance over where we've reduced the budget because everyone's looking at where it went up. But oftentimes when one area goes up, something else is coming down because we're sort of trading off the needs. So we call that sort of reallocation of resources and thinking. So if you look here, you can see the staffing. We talked about reductions, not in the investment of our teachers, but based on enrollment and programs. So this is where I'll take the chair's example of what was on the short list. Programs that we would love to grow, but enrollment is just declining in those programs. And I would have a very hard time explaining why to raise a classroom size in elementary school, even though it's contractual, like Mr. Chamberlain knows, it says that we can go up to 25. But what we know is that we have students with more needs who need more teacher-student ratio, and you have been really mindful of that in elementary schools. So any reduction I've made should be seen through attrition. I don't think, unless they're not certified in an area, they would be able to stay. But in the end, I can't in good conscience continue a program. While I want to get investment, I think right now our towns aren't ready for that level of investment. And that's where sort of my heart sort of like goes, oh, because I know that kids are interested, but you have maybe 15 in one and you have 80 in another, and you sort of have to make some decisions. So that's where it gets really difficult. Deferred capital projects. So Member Hopkins, Member Chapman, all of you have been brought up the Charahoe Cowboys as an example, the field hockey. So we put in, I asked Jason Sullivan, and all of you have asked for a review of what it would cost for us to get our fields ready if we wanted to be able to share that cost. I had to cut it. And now you can put it back, but it's $500,000 more than we would do for what we already do. So we kept in what we normally do, and we wanted to share that figure with you because that figure includes the trucks that would be necessary. We need 2 trucks. One was for this purpose, and my plow is dead. And with the snow, we realized, if it stays this year, I'm gonna be happy. But we're sort of deferring costs now that I can't continue to defer because it may cost us more money in the long run. So that's why we want to make sure we don't do that. The zero furniture budget, I had to make some decisions, and there's no money in supplies. So now furniture is going. So any request for furniture was just removed, any. And again, that's not, I believe that they don't need it, but it's like the needs and the wants. Like, I believe they do need it, but if it's not broken and maybe, you know, we figure it out for a little while and it's not great, but we are doing it and teachers are very thoughtful about it. And in the end, we have furniture, so it's not like kids won't have desks. Everybody has their desk and their place. Is it as nice as we want them to be? No, but it's something that they can use. Technology. So when you hear people say they're not getting any new furniture, they're not based on what I've suggested. This is my recommendation. The technology efficiency. So one of the things was that we have some data dashboards, and Dr. Camilla does a really nice job of ensuring that we're not duplicating systems. So we have a K-8 system that we've been using. We're getting ready to make some shifts, but we do think that there's a technology enhancement that would be reduced in our technology. Remind me, is it 5,300, Kathy? The technology, if we're talking about like site licenses. 5,300. See, I'm getting there. So that's where you would see some of those reductions in the 5,300. You're going to also see increases, and I'll show you why. Next slide. So Chromebook replacements, unavoidable increases. If you recall, a few years ago, the committee asked us to think more about a longer run for Chromebooks. We removed Apples because they were more expensive. And they don't love it. And the seniors, they try, and the junior, they kind of try to get those back in there. But in the end, the Chromebooks have lessened our cost, but then we went to a 6-year replacement versus a 4-year. And I can tell you, I would recommend 5 years. We're on year 6 now, and we're barely making it. Kids break things, and you know they type, and then sometimes the keyboard, but there's so many things, and my friend Eric O'Brien can explain this even better than I can. But overall, when you think about the Chromebook replacements, that's an item I would never recommend to touch because it would impact the way we provide instruction and the way the teachers deliver instruction. So state mandates. Some of the important things to recognize is that there are things where we used to get a lot more money in Perkins grant. Back in like 2017, we got a ton of money. Charahoe was a regional center. And when Governor Raimondo changed and had her P-TECH initiative, she opened up the gate, which was great. I'm a believer in opportunities for students, but what they didn't do was completely fund it. So now they've opened up opportunities for students, which is awesome, but they're underfunding the need. So now all the things that we used to pay for in our Perkins grant becomes less and less every year. An example in this budget specifically is our CTE assessments. So things like their OSHA requirement certified tests that are required, our students who are in health and wellness who had to have transportation to their clinicals, that used to be in the Perkins, now this is in this budget. Things that are required to enhance these programs. If we don't do any of this, we risk losing our programs, and we risk the opportunity to be able to keep students in areas where we know are very well needed and very supported. And we would lessen the experience for them. So I was not willing to compromise on students' clinicals, on their basic needs to ensure that they have what they need. So the other state mandate with the multilingual learner mandate, we get, it is in the funding formula. It is not fully funded, but it's in there. And that's going to get me to, I think I've covered the majority. Oh, actually, no. The one other thing I want to mention is before I talk about the professional development is we did the contractual for the salary, but the other thing, so everything comes with a cost. I'm so proud that our bands and our chorus are booming. We have grown since COVID. That was one of our concerns, and we have done a great job, and it's growing. With that comes more events and more police and fire. So the overtime rates have gone up. We are required to always pay the 4 hours, and when we have more events, and now we're required to do it at open house. Why? We got more. This year, the middle school had the best attendance we've ever seen at open house. And that was awesome. But the fire marshal says, okay, now you need to make sure you pay me and the police. And we are, okay, we're going to do that moving forward. But Kathy Koziel comes in my office and she goes, we'll never be able to have any events. So I talked to the chiefs and the fire marshals, we met with them, and they get it, but they can't compromise what they want to do. So while we're excited about this work, it comes at a cost. So when you look at the police and fire, and I believe that's also in 5,300 purchase services, 5,400 purchase services, that's where you're going to see those changes. And that's why we think the table may be helpful, and this delivering this presentation may be an easier way to know why we're making those decisions. But this is where the budget subcommittee needs your feedback on what's helpful. So the other, if you go to the next slide, Dr. Camilla. So this is about enrollment. This slide, we hear this all the time. Their enrollment's declining. Why isn't the cost going down? And you heard me say it in my memo, because students' needs are up. And it's not because it's behavior or discipline, or they don't know how to do math, or they don't know how to write. It's for a variety of reasons. So I'm actually going to go to the next slide first, and then we're going to go back to the enrollment so you can take a look. Actually, where's the high cost special ed? Where did I put that one? Sorry.
There.
But I just wanted to talk about this for a second. So this is an example of underfunded and why enrollment doesn't equal budget decline. And the chair and I were at a legislative meeting where Dr. Cummings, the Superintendent Narragansett, gave a quick presentation on the legislation that we are putting in and supporting to be able to make sure that districts are getting funded. Right now, the state of Rhode Island funds special ed cost only if the cost of the student it hits the 5th time. So they have to be 4 times the per pupil rate for you to get any reimbursement. Massachusetts and Connecticut funds it fully. So think about this. They're telling us our most vulnerable students. So last year, they only covered 56% of what it costs the state of Rhode Island to cover those needs. So when I say I don't know about you, but I'm never going to suggest anyone not ensure their most vulnerable students have what they need. One, the IDEA law doesn't allow that. But again, do we really need a law that tells us that students should have what they need? So I don't even know how many people realize we have adults on staff who are toileting 18-year-olds. That's a real need. Charter schools don't have that need. So when we think about, and I am not charter schools. I have friends who run charter schools, who work in charter schools. They're lovely if they're held to the same standard. And if the budget, there's no board like this overseeing the fiscal stewardship. They're allowed to do the same per pupil expenditure, but they have a superintendent or CEO. They have a director of curriculum. They have a finance director. So you don't have 35 districts. You have 61, 66, and they keep approving applications. So the pot of money is becoming smaller. That's why you're getting less. I get it. It's easy to sort of blame us. And I'm not saying there's blame. I'm saying that the system as it's designed is broken. And I believe Washington County is ready, to step in it together to do this work. And I am happy and proud. And I told them I will do whatever I need to do, but that's where the rubber hits the road. We need to stop arguing with local because we're on the same team. And I do believe, what Tyler said, I think the unified school allows us to see we're not Charlestown, we're not Hopkinton, we're not Richmond, we're Charahoe. And in the end, what if Charahoe was a village within South County? We're going to be thinking about how can we get, RIDE in the General Assembly to realize a lot of us are very smart and can think about doing things differently. Instead of just putting a commission together, we need to be advocating to do the work that we know we can prove the data and results. And there's a lot of brain trust in Rhode Island, but in the end, it's who's coming to the table. And right now, we're only stronger if we work as a collaboration across the region beyond Charahoe, because that's when we all have the same needs. EWG and I are fighting the same battles in a different way. And so Narragansett, Westerly, we're all fighting to build CTE programs where we're only matching opportunities. We're not enhancing opportunities. So if we want to really enhance opportunities for Rhode Island is in Texas, we would be one school committee, one district. So people get worried about that. So I'm not talking about regionalizing. I'm talking about collaboration where school committees work together versus maybe your Charahoe Act kind of idea. This is where we have to think differently. We're playing defense. We need to play offense. And that's where I need your help. If you can go back to the other slide for enrollment. So enrollment, the enrollment shifts. This is another thing of the budget that never makes sense to me. That one-page summary. At the bottom, you have Charlestown, Richmond, and Hopkinton. And I remember saying to Ned when I got here, and now Ned started when I started, why do we do it like that? That is so out of context. That's not even a real number because it doesn't make sense. It's like me saying to you, I now get $1 a day. You used to get 50 cents and you still get 50 cents. You got a 0% increase and I was getting 0 cents and now I have a 100% increase. That doesn't make sense. Our budget, Charahoe's budget, the budget I'm recommending is 2.65%. That's the increase. But what's happening is we're looking at our towns and so now I say to Greg, I hate that whole thing. Why do we do that? And he says, because it's Ned said it on the sheet, but then, Ned said the towns, the members of school committees and the towns want to see their portion, but it's taken out of context. So what is it? I'm now fighting 4 battles. I'm fighting the Charahoe battle, the Richmond battle, the Hopkinton battle, and the Charlestown battle. And what you want us to do is work together. Because we want to understand that when I said at one of the meetings, I don't control tax rates, I don't. Because I can only tell you, I don't have any control over police and fire, but I have to pay it. But that's a town decision. And I'm not saying that they don't need us to pay that to the police. I'm just saying that I have no control over that. So we have to think DPW. I don't decide how many trucks they get or what the stand is. But in the end, we have to rethink how we work together so that we are on the same page. So our budget increase is 2.65% as I've recommended. 2.76, I apologize, 2.76. So, and it's under the 3.2 inflation. So, we'll just keep it one more second. Go back to the enrollment. So you can see Charlestown has a very small 0.17% decrease, right? We're at 23.26%. Richmond fell negative 0.21. So they're just under where they were last year. But Hopkinton saw a 0.39 increase. Hopkinton continues to increase. One year they had a small one. But in the end, here's what we know. People want to live here. People want to come to our schools. And that's a good thing. That brings in revenue. And I can tell you, if a charter school opens up anywhere, we're going to get less money because the pot gets thinner. So the public still pays. Private schools have no state accountability, right? So they can do whatever they want. And they can close school and open school and snow days because they don't get state funding. We follow different rules, and the charters follow the same rules, but they don't have the same rules as it relates to funding. They get the entire per pupil expenditure, just like you would get, but they don't have your overhead. I may lose, so if you see this example I thought was really poignant, and we used it at the legislative meeting. We shared it, not on a slide, but in conversation, that if we had, example was 80 student decline across 13 grades, which is typically what Charahoe would see. This is a very good example because this is what we see. You're talking about 1.5 students. I'm still putting on the heat, turning on the water, and keeping the grounds up and running. So that's why enrollment doesn't equal the funding, but that's how the funding formula is built. So if we don't make sure that the funding formula, if we don't start with high-cost special ed, we've already lost. Because that's where the most vulnerable needs are, because you can't violate federal law, IDEA. You'll spend more money. You'll be sending these students out of district. Okay, can we go to the... Okay, so this is the inflation is real, I promise. I didn't make this up. This isn't Gina Picard's inflation rate. This is New England. You can fact check us. But I'm really proud that every year we provide a budget to the school committee that's under inflation. And I still believe we are doing excellent work for our students and our teachers. Do I get everything I wish we could get? I think the chair calls it my wish list. No way. You trust me. You don't want that conversation because I have a different sense of the educational world and what I would. My wants are very different because it's beyond just things looking nice. It's really about identifying education for individual students. But I think what I want to make sure you understand is that we're doing a good job. That means that when we have our audits, there's no findings, there's no recommendations, and we made sure that this budget is nowhere near, is not going to where the inflation is. So even with all the increases, I believe I'm putting forward a budget that makes sure that we can go forward with a Vision 2029 that keeps our momentum at a thoughtful pace. Is it a fast pace? No. But it's a pace that will keep us moving. If you want us to move a little bit faster, then it has to change. And I'm going to give you an example. Sharon Martin came in, and well, all of our principals were here, and I may have been the chair, but I'm not sure, someone asked, well, what do you need? What would be helpful? And Mrs. Martin talked about writing, and she talked about a BCBA. We actually are interviewing for a BCBA this week. But that's not the star, right? But that's a step forward. And it's a good step forward. The difference with a BCA is a board certified behavior analyst. It will help teacher assistants and our educators and our BMAs to understand how to draft behavioral plans, how you monitor them, what kind of skills, how you teach a skill set for a child who may need that support. It's your clinical psychologist, which we don't have one on staff. But this budget includes, through retirement, a clinical psychologist, because we have a contracted service for our CALA, Charahoe Alternative Learning Academy. Her name is Dr. Erin Churchill, and she's amazing. And Dr. Churchill has done wonderful work with us to ensure that our multi-tiered systems of support are realigning to what the law ensures for our students who have needs where it relates to neurodivergent needs. She then ensures that the board-certified behavior analyst is taking in the brain development and the child development and the human development of how people learn as they draft the behavior plans. You can't have, districts try to do one without the other. And what happens is you fall into a place of compliance, and then that's when students' needs increase because it's not a compliance-driven need. It's actually an emotional regulation need. It's more about teaching a skill set. An easy way to explain this, I love the example of Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a Disney movie. I'm a big Disney fan. There's 4 emotions: sadness, anger, fear, joy. There's like the basic emotions. That's like your baseline emotional regulation. And then when you think about it other ways, sometimes anxiety throws it. Who had butterflies? When we're talking about the bond, like certain agenda items. That doesn't mean that we're disabled. It means that certain things make us anxious, but we have coping strategies. Not everybody has strategies. So what we're talking about is investing in ensuring that we give kids strategies to be successful in what they need. You know, the next slide? Next slide. Did that one. Okay. So, final takeaways. I'm not going to reiterate a lot, but I think we're making great strides. We have great success. We should be very proud of our district, and we have very clean audits. Our budget is driven by the strategic plan. This budget represents not a new beginning, like I said in the overview, but it really is a sustainability plan to enhance the work that we're doing and bringing it to the next level. And in my superintendent reports, if I hope you stay, most people leave, but I hope you don't. My superintendent reports, I'm going to talk about the strategic plan and where you should all be thinking about how your schools are going to be informing their families and how I will be informing the school committee. Because that's the work. This budget does not represent just, I need this money. This represents how we are moving the school forward, with FY27 being year 1 of Vision 2029. And then finally, what I would say is that I also believe it sustains the high quality that our students and teachers expect. And it manages the risk for the district to ensure that we're doing our due diligence. So I want to thank you all for your time.
6%. What's going on?
I'll let Greg take it.
So the 2.76% is the increase of the spending. And then the 6.79% is the increase after your state aid. When we were looking at all this, we went back and forth, should that whole bottom square row be taken out of the budget? Because it's not, that's your increase after your state aid, but you're getting your state aid, and then what you're really paying is the box above it, the 4.3 right there.
So this goes back to that context. It's I told you I left the bottom line in, but it provides confusion because it doesn't represent your actual budget increase. It's giving misinformation, I feel. And that's where I need your help. I need your help to understand why that row was not required. It's something that was created for this school committee because you wanted it delivered this way. But when you do it this way, it's not recommended by auditors, it's not recommended by finance directors, but it was what the school committee requested way back when. So we do it. But it wasn't a vote, but they've done it out of courtesy. What I'm suggesting, and this is where the budget subcommittee needs feedback, this takes your budget out of context. Because you're getting state aid. The state aid has to come to us. The towns aren't collecting state aid, it's statewide taxpayers. So what you're doing is you're giving information that doesn't provide the context. Our budget increase is the 2.76 before state aid, but the state aid's coming in. They're not going to find it. It's coming to them. And the way that we get, so for example, we're a regional district where the money goes to the towns and then we get it. That's not in the Charahoe Act, but that's how you all decided the finance directors get it. That's fine, no problem. But what's happening is they're asking you to calculate it this way, which is out of context and doesn't represent what the budget really is.
Craig, did you have a follow-up? Did you have a follow-up?
First of all, this
Listen, go ahead, because that's why, Greg's and he and I, we went back and forth if we wanted to have this conversation, but I don't think I can get to a point that we need to get to without this conversation. Craig, please.
I look at it this way. A, it's been in effect since before I've been on this committee, which is longer than anybody here. And two, it's still offsetting the cost to each community.
So we have to, this, by the way, when we run this sheet, we can't run this in Keystone the way we want to because it's like I told you, it's not advisable. So we have to create a separate sheet to be able to do that because it doesn't represent your actual budget. So that's where I think I can actually give you better reports and better information if you adhere to sort of the financial guidelines of thinking of Charahoe as a district, not separate towns. So you're comparing apples and oranges. And that's where, listen, I get it. I need you to wrap your heads around it. I'm going to ask my friend Tyler Champlin, Laura Chapman, to really push us on how we can help explain this to the public. I welcome anyone to come sit with us and really provide, because I agree with you. This is what this community is used to, so I didn't just pull it. But this is the conversation. It can't wait any longer.
Tyler?
Gina, and I think I've asked this before, but do we actually bill the towns?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, we send them a bill.
We send them,
On this, hold on, Greg, hold on. On this one-page sheet, right, which we all hate,
It's all on one page.
what number are we sending to the towns as the bill?
I'll let Greg. Because he does, I don't do the bills.
so the town, so part of the problem, honestly, is that the towns receive the state aid.
Understand, right?
So-
But what number are we billing the town?
We bill the 6% because the state aid. But the local taxes are 2.65 increase. overall to Charahoe. 2.76. 2.76, thank you. I don't know, I think that's because.
So, Tyler, you're looking for a concrete answer. So, Charlestown would be billed
But not taxes, did I say taxes?
$14,763,587.
All right, so we're looking up that next line, the members town contribution with debt service. Right?
That's what they would be billed, but 1.5 million of that, if we use last year's numbers, would be state aid.
So at the end of the day, the number that the town is expected to pay.
It's 13,263,147.
Yeah, okay.
And
Everybody
then if you take
understand
that number and you subtract it by the 12,651,648, you would see the increase for that town.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to argue back is that if you go above 4%, you have to get permission from your town. But
You don't, the town gets to get permission from the state.
the town has to get permission from the state. So, and what I think has always been confusing with this budget is, we look at it as, we speak about Charahoe, but then we divide it into towns, and then there's always the arguing among the towns about the budget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a regional district, that's a conversation that has to be had, right? Unfortunately, right? There's an overall increase to a district, but it hits each town differently.
Yes.
May I make a point? So last year's omnibus, if you go back, Sylvia Thompson had asked a question about our fund balance. And I shared with her that if you go to the town's websites, all of them, their fund balances are much higher than ours. Our fund balance, in my budget is at 2.25, Greg? I think
2.25.
2.25. And it doesn't give me 1 month of expenditures. That's a problem. The auditor has told you that every year they come, the new auditor, the old auditor told you need minimum 10. But if you want to start someplace, start at 7. But what we know is it doesn't meet our needs. If we have, Foster Gloucester just had a $600,000 bill because students moved in and needed statewide transportation and they didn't budget for it. When you don't have a fund balance, that becomes, you have to now talk to the Auditor General and do that. And I get it. They don't want us, what people call it surplus. It isn't surplus. It's basically saying unexpected cost. I had 2 students move in the last 2 months, and I have to make sure that I meet those students' needs. I didn't budget that way, but I'm required to do it. So then you have to make these changes that impact. And then you get phone calls sometimes and says, oh, why would they do this in the middle of the year? I can't say, oh, I have new high-cost special education. So we have to manage those risks. So what we want to be able to do is ensure that we have, so Sylvia said the fund balance, and she said, well, we have to have it high because we don't know about state aid. I said, but if you directed the state aid to the district, you would no longer have the worry about paying us. So again, that's where I think the conversation is, we've got to think differently about how we've done this. If the towns can agree, and this may be some of the budget workshop, this may be an omnibus conversation, if they gave the state aid directly to us, and I get that there's been a trust issue, then they're no longer planning for this downwind, and then we can become Charahoe, because the state aid can't be diverted. So let's say the state aid gets higher or less. They don't get it back because it's legally educational funding. So there's no benefit for the town to actually take the money, especially if they want this line. If you want this line, then send the finance to us and you'll see that go down really fast because it doesn't make sense. You just need to understand that the point is the state funding, they're holding fund balances at 17% in some cases. Take a look, and they're telling us they're doing it because of us. And I said to Sylvia at the omnibus, well then direct the fund this way and you no longer have to do that. Tyler, did you have a follow-up?
I mean, the town's fund balances are what the town's fund balances are, but whether the state aid goes directly to the town and then to the district, or goes to the town and then to the district, or directly comes to the district, the state aid's not going to change. It's not going to change that number.
Right.
So it's either in one hand or the other. It's still going to the same place.
But the budget conversation changes the context. I agree with you, but it's the way they're looking at it, Tyler. That's what I need help with. I need to help understand people, how people are. Ryan Callahan used to say to me, how do we draw this in crayon so that it makes the easiest sense? And that's why I'm going to ask for your help.
Especially to those of us who are not finance, have MBAs in finance. I mean, that's
Because
a lot
listen,
to digest.
if I see a number, if someone says to me something's going up 10%, I go, what? But if I understand, oh, well, that's only going to be this much for me, that's where we're sort of, we're making it more difficult than it needs to be, and we're sending a message that's not accurate. So this isn't about pulling the wool over, this is about getting people to understand when other districts say, I have a 2.76 increase, that's what they focus on. Here, it's like, I have 13, 6, 8, but it's based on enrollment. And I told you, I can't fix the enrollment. I can't fix that Hopkinton's getting more kids. So if we're going to be Charahoe, then we've got to stop talking about each other's towns and just focus on Charahoe. And this is one of, I think, after the unified school, it's the next step.
Jess?
So I take your point philosophically,
Oh, I'm
right?
sorry, Polly, you had your hand raised.
Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
I had a very short question.
Okay, Polly and then Jess.
Only because I heard this earlier today, so I'm going to be that person. Where did you get the 3.2%?
Oh, it's, can you go back, Mike? Because I didn't. It's the New England, it's the New England inflation.
New England inflation,
It says it,
okay, because I was,
It's right there. If you Google
Okay.
the consumer price index, this is the New England's inflation rate.
And I think the
okay.
nation's at 2.9,
2.6.
2.6.
Yep, it's holding steady, maybe.
I haven't
And,
seen that.
and I heard.
Well, we
two
checked it on
something-
Friday.
Yeah, I heard 2 something today, so I quickly Googled it up and AI shot out 2.6. So I was like, okay, so where'd she get that number? So, and I see on the CPI, but how is that different because things are more expensive in New England than they are in the rest of the country?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And we're gonna go 100% green energy in less than 10 years.
And your school
Can we
building
all work
projects
together
have to be
push back on that? It's ridiculous.
Jess?
Okay. So
But can I add that is another increase in your budget, $12,000 for composting? Because we were doing it with grants and the federal government cut the very grants, we had it and they said, we're not doing this anymore. So now, I have to tell you, I'm very proud of our students. They're emailing the legislature. They shared a letter with me, which I thought was great, because these are our student interns that you've met from Scales. And they are requesting that the legislature do more collaboration so that they have great ideas by how we can do this ourselves. So I'm hoping that this $12,000 for us this year becomes nothing for next year, but this is where another advocacy point. This underfunded is the compost waste management law on RIGL books that came in 2 years ago and we had to implement by last year.
Jess?
Okay. So Gina, I understand and I appreciate your point that we're Charahoe, we're one district. But the reality is, this bottom line shows you the discrepancy between what each town gets for state aid. And it's pretty big discrepancy, what Charlestown gets versus what the other 2 towns get.
Why?
I think because of the number of students they have and also the wealth of their town.
So Charlestown pays a higher per pupil.
Absolutely.
So this is where I.
Like, let me keep
Oh, sure.
talking, so we're not getting off track with what I'm trying to say. And so this bottom line, you're saying let's do away with it, but this has been a big part of how everyone has understood the budget for as long as I've been doing the budget. This is what your town increase is going to be. Your municipal tax bill is going to show an increase of 4.83, 6.11. So if you want to do away with this, like, that's fine, but people will be surprised. And I didn't hear anything about doing away with this line the whole time the budget subcommittee met. We talked
No, because
about.
I didn't talk about it because it's exactly what you said. I did not make that recommendation. Let's just be transparent. Like I'm January of last year, there was a lot of changes. We had a new chair, we had a lot of new members that added, and it just wasn't the time to do that. And I and the chair were working together. We're getting more in sync because there's more conversation. We're learning how each other works. And I think that's helping the school committee and the public. But in the end, it doesn't mean that we always agree, but it means that when the chair asks me a question in a way that she's understanding it, helps me understand how the public understands it. So what I need from all of you is that line I found out from Ned, it's not a real line. He said, nobody does this. Sue Rogers was told to do this, and before Sue, it was Brian Stanley, because it was a request from school committee, because their town councils asked them to do it, which is great, but it takes it out of context. So they don't understand it because they're not understanding it. I mean, how many times, you can go back to my slide decks and you can see, and Craig Lazan is always asking for the chart. I know now because everyone misunderstands this. Charlestown pays a higher per pupil because they get less state aid. Hopkinton gets more state aid, so their per pupil is different. But you're still comparing apples and oranges. What I'm saying to you is I'm just asking that we compare apples to apples.
I need to see an example of how you want to do that.
No problem.
Because
I didn't do it this year yet.
Like
because that's
taking
why.
this away is not helpful. I do need it written out in crayon because I need to be educated on what you're trying to do, how it's going to look, and how we're going to explain it to residents.
Right.
That's where I got to get to. That's what I need. Tyler?
And that's where, Jess, I completely agree. Well, Gina, I understand where you're going theoretically with the apples to oranges comparison. However, our towns care about that bottom line that you want to take out, because that's what's going to hit their budget. That's what's going to hit their tax increase. That's what they care about.
So that's
Yes,
the funding formula.
Funding formula or not, this is what's going to go into our town budgets next year or this coming year, whenever it is, right? So that's what we care about. While I understand that overall it's only 2.76, and to me overall that sounds relatively reasonable. Probably the year over year New England CPI actually, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is actually 3.3, not 3.2. If you look at November to November of 24 to 25.
Thank you, Tyler.
So
I'll update it for the omnibus.
the piece that the towns care about are that bottom line piece, right? If I'm going to residents in the town of Hopkins and say, hey, school budget's increasing 8.76%, that's going to hit our town's bottom line. That's going to hit your tax bill. Well, 8.76 is a big difference from 2.76, right?
How do we get there though?
It's all the funding formula, and that's the Charahoe Act. It's based on enrollment, and that's how it's calculated.
May I?
Yeah, go for it.
Here's why I need the advocacy. It is the funding formula, and it's not the Charahoe Act. The Charahoe Act mirrors the general law. Every district, regional or not, is charter schools too. It's based on enrollment. The funding formula is broken, and the plan that they put out, which why I believe it's well intended and hit like the high cost special ed, absolutely they caught it. They got that piece right. What they didn't get right was they didn't take into account regional districts. We are not, and actually Megan Carter said this very well. She said, we're regional. Some of these other districts think regionalizing is going to help them. And we're saying it's not helping us. The funding formula is broken and they didn't do anything with regionals. That's where we need to advocate. Our town councils and us, along with all of South County, needs to go to the General Assembly. We have plans and say, start with the high cost special ed and we'll show you how to fix it. It's the funding formula that is penalizing us for being regional.
And for also paying our bills on time and well.
Laura?
No, I am recalling a conversation I had last budget season with the town manager. I can't remember. I think it was from Hopkinton, actually.
Brian Rosso?
Yeah, and I remember him saying that it has something to do with the timing of when the town budgets versus the school budgets are being presented, and that I believe that was also had something to do with where this line that you're referring to, that had something to do with the timing.
So actually, I think, I don't know for sure because I'm not positive, but just so you know, all districts will tell you, not just regional, that the timing is terrible because we don't even know what the state aid is. So we're asked to create a budget. All districts are. And some like North Smithfield has to have it by November. per their charter. And Cranston has to have it at this time, and North Providence has to have it at this time. We all are required to give our budgets to the towns prior to their budgets. That's how the system in the state works. But the state doesn't tell us. So we're actually, really, they should be in session now, and we should be in session at the end. It's backwards. That's where the advocacy has to happen. You have the superintendents in across the district, you have leaders across the district that really understand this. But we're fighting ourselves instead of really fighting the funding formula being thoughtful even beyond what they put out. It's not comprehensive enough. It only scratches the surface. The only thing I would say I would anchor to right now is the high cost special ed. I think if we all start there as a state, we've made headway.
So
As long as you keep transportation.
As long as, right, and again, we get a bonus for regional and we have to fight for it like it's like at the Hunger Games.
So I have a comment, because, obviously messaging is everything. So I appreciate Jess's comments, Tyler's comments. And in looking at this, it's going to be really, really hard if, Hopkinton and Richmond are looking at, and Charlestown too, 8.76 for Hopkinton, Richmond 6.11 and 4.83 for Charlestown. But then in the sort of the next breath, we're talking about an overall budget increase of 2.76%. When you look at the bottom line numbers between fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27, it's less than a $2 million increase. Am I reading that correctly, Greg? 69,765,000 and change.
It's just under 2 million.
It's just under 2 million. So it's just under a $2 million increase for a school district that's in the top quadrant of success. So it's really hard for me to wrap my arms around the 8.76 number on the bottom.
So what you're probably
How do we
not
sell
looking
that?
at, well, you have to, you have to look.
That's what I need your help doing.
Yeah.
And you have to look a little bit further down the one pager and realize that your 2.25% fund balance this year only gets you 2.1 million. Last year it got you almost 2.5. Yeah.
It's 300 grand.
So what?
I mean, it's 300 grand difference.
Well, but Tyler, all this starts adding up. You spent 2 million more. You got 300,000 less. You got a $500,000 less in income. I mean, we just talked $3 million.
So like you'll see, I think, like the utilities, the water, from Hope Valley. Hope Valley, saved you money, but inflation is at 3.2. So in the end, and by the way, in the budget, you will see Hope Valley Annex because of the pre-K. So I just don't, that's why you see that.
Craig?
I'd make a recommendation that next week for the omnibus, to respect tradition and go back to the way it looked before, like last year.
The budget presentation?
Yeah. No, just these numbers, this page.
I didn't change the page.
That page is your page.
I didn't change that page.
Those are your
Are there columns missing?
No,
What you're
no.
saying?
There's nothing missing. The
No,
pages are
the
the same.
numbers
No,
are.
this is exactly the same. It hasn't changed yet, Greg.
So-
Craig.
I purposely didn't change it because I knew.
I do
One
want
at a
to
time.
point out when this budget was being created and there was much discussion around needs and wants, and none of the wants were cut out. This was at 8.88%.
Which number?
Number.
The
number?
2.76 number was
2.76.
Okay.
So when people came forward and said, the field hockey field is in disarray, needs to be fixed, and the varsity field should be in better shape, and all that, we included all that in. And it was, so every time someone came up to the podium
Or you asked.
we included that in our original budget. And it was at 8, so Hopkinton was at 14%, I believe. It was, the numbers were, I mean, beyond imaginable.
The reduction of this budget,
So, you're going to have to look at, where you think there are more, things that are wants versus needs. But every time someone gets up to that podium and makes a request, if we're going to honor it, you're going to very quickly see 10% budget increases. And that's what this budget originally started as, because we were gonna try to, you know, this committee has to say no to certain things. There's no way every ask that comes to that podium can we afford to pay for.
Okay. Gina, did you have a comment? And then
I was going to
know
say that a little bit differently. When I look at your budget, I'm looking at the strategic plan. I'm looking at the purpose of what we're doing, right? Student success, ensuring our teachers have the tools and resources necessary to educate our kids and to keep us at our top 10. And I believe this budget does that. And I showed you some of the big picture cuts. The only thing left to get you to the way you normally do this, and again, it's going to mean you're going to have to either raise class sizes or cut student programs or cut transportation and look at deep. You're going to have to make some changes of how we run our business, changes of how we operation. It's class size, it's cutting programs. I'm building band, which I agree with, but it brings in more cost for fire and police and auditorium usages. And now, you know, we're updating our auditorium. That's great. All of these things are wonderful, but they come at a cost. So I just need to understand from you, are we, because there is, it's no money in supplies. We're like, and that's why the budget workshop, the questions that you have after you go through your budget are going to be important, but in the end, we did I impacted programs for my cuts, but what I tried to say, I tried to, at my core, focus on the needs of the strategic plan and the investment for our kids and teachers can't do without. By making cuts, you're looking at staffing, programs, and the way we do business differently.
So we're almost at 10 o'clock.
That's why I had my hand up to make a motion to go past 10 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a motion to go past 10 o'clock. We have a second. All those in favor? Okay, who is opposed? Diane and Karen. Anyone abstaining? No. Okay, so the motion carries. Jess?
Okay, so I'm back to this bottom line. And I'm really wondering if we've all been misunderstanding this bottom line for years, because I'm reading it, percent increase contribution to district after state aid. If this were the increase per town, would it say percent increase contribution to town? Like, I want to see what, it sounds like we've all interpreted this as, this is the town's increase.
Correct. That's how I interpreted it.
Always.
If it's not that, I need someone to explain it better. I need you to draw it in crayon. I need you to show me each town's increase to their tax base.
I mean, I think that's exactly what that number is.
Right, but what's happening is just the confusion comes in because of the state aid. So it looks like because they're taking in the state aid, it actually goes to them, so that bumps their number because their state aid is different, which is why the confusion when people say Charlestown pays less, they actually don't. Their per pupil is higher. And that's where I need to be able to, I need all of you to help me get to the point where you can't explain.
Per pupil's great and understandable, but at the end of the day, the bill, Jess, that we're sending our towns is, for Richmond, is $23,727,146. We send that bill to Richmond. Richmond receives from the state $6,378,048.
Right.
So at the end of the day, Richmond's budget is impacted $17.349 million
Yep,
by Charahoe,
yep.
By
which
the
is
funding formula.
But then,
whatever the funding formula, the district, the bill's coming from the district. So that's an increase over last year of 6.11%, or roughly, it's actually almost $1 million flat to
But
the
it's
town of
based
Richmond.
on enrollment.
right, and that's how I've always understood it.
Yes, and your understanding is correct. I'm not sure what the confusion here right now is.
The confusion, I think I'm not saying that there's necessarily confusion. What I'm saying is you're fighting multiple battles. You're trying to put in context every town's budget in your budget, where most districts, right, when regional districts have conversations about their budget, you all have taken a different way to think about it, which is not like it's wrong, Jess. The numbers will match up, but it doesn't give you the clear context of what's happening. So let's say, like when Sylvia Thompson mentioned the fund balance, the towns are budgeting higher in their fund balance because of the state aid. They would be able to reduce their fund balance costs, as one example, right? If the state aid came to us. So they would be decreasing that side of their house on fund balance.
But that won't affect our budget.
That would affect, no, but
It doesn't affect
Right,
the
but that's
Charahoe budget.
that's a good
that's my
solution
point.
for something else. that's
your
happening.
fund balance isn't enough to cover 1 month's expense. Theirs is.
Right.
But if they're saying to all of us, and you heard them say it, Sylvia Thompson said it, we're asking for 70% because of the state aid. If they stop budgeting for their fund balance at 70% because they're doing it for us, because we're taking in the money, then that number is going to get lower because they're not going to be budgeting to worry about the school. So what I'm asking for is a context, not that the number changes, but the way they're budgeting looks different because they're not budgeting in case of emergencies for the school.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying. I think that's an overall picture, but I think for me as a school committee member, I can't really, that's not really my area. And I think, overall, I think your presentation, there were a lot of moments where I wanted to know, like, well, what's the number for that?
I have it. I
think
wanted
for
to make sure
for
that we
the
provided.
omnibus, I think it might be helpful if some of that information was included. Like, there was, you had the number for the composting, but it was.
Yeah, we're going to have a table.
The fund balance, how much is, what would it be? What is 1 month of expenditures for the Charahoe School District? I think that would be eye-opening for folks to know. Maybe see the percentages of the four big buckets.
Could you just go a little slower? Because we want to make sure we can watch the tape, but just want to make sure on the top of
Yeah,
mind.
so where the dollar goes, there's the four big buckets. Maybe it could be a percentage, how much of each bucket is in the budget.
Perfect, yep.
Doesn't have to be exact, but a percentage. How many positions were lost due to attrition? How much furniture, how much was cut in furniture? How
The
much
amount.
was that?
Had
The
it, yep.
amount.
And typically in the past, I had those numbers, but I'm trying to give a different picture so that we can help understand context, because clearly this budget battle has been going on since the 1900s.
Yeah.
And if nothing changes, nothing changes. And what's the definition of insanity, everybody?
Do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
After 10 PM.
All right, Karen had her, Jess, you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
Karen had her hand raised.
Just email me.
So
I have it.
my final question here, because I think we have to move on.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to understand
is-
anything after this.
The information that we've received all along up to this point is if you go over 4%, you need state approval.
The towns need it.
The towns need state approval. Okay, so we don't even know what the town budgets are right now. So what percentage on this page, this one pager, is going to be the real number for the towns when they're measuring a potential 4% increase?
When you include state aid that they're getting from the state, it's that number that you see.
It's the bottom line number at the bottom of the page. That's going to be a hard sell for us, ladies and gentlemen.
Which is why I want to explain it.
Think about that hard sell in an environment where we're also trying to sell a bond to our residents.
That was my concern, because that payment's also
That's a
gonna
bond. That's a bond
contribute,
waiting
and
to
that's
happen.
gonna.
Larry?
I don't know how true it is. There's something about we might not be getting like $7-point-something million.
Yeah, she was talking about that with
The funding formula.
So that Blue Ribbon Commission, I don't think that anything with that is going to happen
Not
this
gonna
year.
happen this year.
That's not going to happen this year.
Okay.
I would not put all the eggs in that basket.
Right. So what
Keep
is
your
our,
guard up.
so what is our recommendation to the superintendent and to Mr. Zenyan about next week's omnibus meeting? Do we have any recommendations from this committee?
Well, we're always
Larry.
we're for the kids all the time, correct?
That's
We're
our motto.
For the kids. We want what's best for the kids. Maybe we gotta start with up at the top and maybe have to thin the herd out a little bit at the
So,
top.
so what does that mean? You're talking about reductions
Reduction
in,
in administration. Do we need 15 clerks? I'm just,
That's not administration,
no,
that's,
that's a drop in the
that's the
bucket.
ESP union.
okay.
That's a drop in the bucket. Really, it's staffing. I mean, it's what Gina said. It would be looking at class sizes, cutting teachers. That's where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck.
Laura?
I mean, I guess my bigger question is if, knowing that from what I'm looking at on this form, I mean, it seems that every town would need to, they're over that 4%, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just with the school budget, not with the town budgets. So you gotta add the town budgets in too, right?
So then with that being the case I mean, what is the other option for the school? If you're only presenting a 2.76% increase, then in order to get below that, you either have to level fund the budget, is that right?
I don't even think level funding the budget's gonna get you to where you wanna be.
Yeah, I agree with
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I would make a request, Gina, to see what level funding the budget would look like. I don't want you to tell us where you think the cuts can be made or anything like that. I just want to see what it
number.
looks like.
Can,
So do we need a motion on that?
before you make a motion,
okay.
can I ask that Laura and Tyler look at that one pager one more time? Lynn, Kathy, Mike, and I have run the numbers. I mean, we have run that page every way, but something just doesn't seem,
No, it doesn't. And
something
something
doesn't seem to,
right.
something doesn't seem right, but we can't.
I mean, again,
So
here's
I would love for
hold on,
one
let
of
Craig
you to
finish.
tell us we made a mistake.
here's what
Do you
I'm
have
not.
this- do you
Here's
have it in Excel form?
Let me look at it real quickly. Yeah, if we could get it in Excel, Greg, that'd be
That'd be
helpful.
great.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, your top line, 71.6, 69.7. That's 1.9.
That's 1.9
$1.9 million increase.
Yes.
That's a $1.9 million increase. I go to the bottom line, I got 48,177, 45, 152. That's a $3 million increase. Something doesn't make sense there.
Because the state aid's
What-
included at the.
So
But the state
that I
aid's
can,
exactly the same as last year.
but that
State
I
aid's
can,
exactly the same.
Tyler, that I can put on pretty quickly. You got a 1.9% increase in your 51, 52, 53, all that top, right? We agree on that. It's 1.9, correct?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Okay, so roughly. Then when you go down,
I mean, you have reduction in revenue, right, Greg?
you have a $300,000 reduction in revenue.
Yeah.
But then you also have a almost
Six,
a $400,000 reduction in your fund balance.
300.
So the reduction in revenue wasn't because of CTE, it was because our Charahoe Alternative Learning Academy is at capacity and I don't have the space. I can't take more out of district kids. We were getting kids from other schools, but we need that, we need that space because we have students who need it.
So are we in agreement that perhaps in the next few days, Laura and Tyler can take a look at this and they could huddle with Greg and Dr. Kamala? Is that possible?
I'll attempt that. I don't know if I have time this week, to be 110% honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you can send me the spreadsheet, then I can certainly take a look at it.
I mean, I'd also like to request the 49 pager in Excel too.
Yeah, please.
I think we've done that before. Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
But the only, right, not the one, the 40, but what I
I'd
want.
like both, the one
just
page and the
both.
49 page.
Right, just make sure that when we talk at this meeting, you use this book.
Always.
Look at the dates.
Okay. My only other comment is that just anticipating what might be mentioned at the omnibus, especially from the Hopkinton delegation on the town council side. Maybe all of them, I don't know, is that, Hope Valley is now closed and there was an $895,000 reduction in the budget as a result of closing Hope Valley early. So, I think that we're gonna hear that and then see these numbers down there on the bottom of this page. And it's just, it's all about how you package it, right? So, okay. Are we ready to move on to the next agenda item,
I
Polly?
just have one request, and I want you all to consider it, what it would look like and how much we would save if we removed computers from sixth grade down. I know,
make work more money.
you've stated.
It would cost us
I
more
love that
for a
idea.
textbook. It actually costs, they charge you more for a textbook than a site license. It costs us more. I know. They got me coming and going.
Sure, But I do see, my kids do have textbooks and they come home with workbooks and stuff. And if it's all about what's best for the kids, studies are showing that what's best for the kids is
Less screen time?
less screen time. And I can speak from absolute personal experience of having 3 children in this school system. They don't need those computers, in my opinion, until they hit about 8th grade. Otherwise, we're taking them away from the youngest one because he's playing games on them. And we've taken screen time. Oh, I'm checking my email. I'm doing homework. No, you're not. You're playing games.
I just want to make sure, so you're asking me to bring an increase for the textbooks?
I would like
can.
to see what it looks like if we did not renew 5 grades of computers.
But it's not just the computers. It's just-
I understand. There's licenses, there's.
Right, because if I don't have a
Yeah.
site license, I need the textbook, which costs 3 times what the site license costs. Just
When
wanna-
was the last time we bought textbooks that we have?
Oh, no, we buy them because certain things you have, we still have textbooks, but the more.
Everybody?
No, that's, because of the paper and the environmental laws, it's 3 times what it would cost.
But
I don't
it's-
disagree with you, Polly. I'm just.
But it's what's best for the kids too. So
and if
we
that's-
should
if
have
you
that
like what we're asking,
conversation.
we can add it.
I'd love to see it, but
You don't have to add it, just, like, I can't differentiate from
You
these
want a number.
numbers.
Got it.
How much of that is in there if you cut it at 6th grade and below? I can't tell.
But just remember,
know?
you have to
separate
one
it
to
by
increase
UCOLA
textbooks. So I'm gonna give you that number.
Yeah, thank you. That's
You're
my
welcome.
only
Perfect.
request.
All right, can we move on to the next agenda item? Okay. Agenda item, business 8D, approve submission of the Charahoe Necessity of School Construction Stage 1 to RIDE for February 15th, 2026, and the Stage 2 application for September 15th, 2026. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent.
And
Hello.
actually, Deb Faith is here from Colliers. So I am recommending approval of the stage 1 to give us the time necessary to ensure we have the information for our community around the land so that we can share more. Right now, as you know, it's an executive session because it impacts our negotiation abilities and what we need to be able to do. So if Deb's here, if any questions you have regarding this, it's basically a repackaging for no additional cost. And so that we keep our space in the line, and then you'll approve the actual stage 2 in September. It gives us more time with our community.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
We are so sorry to keep you so.
Really,
late.
if I knew
Yeah,
that, I would have made
apologies.
this. Sorry. Yes, sorry, we would have
Yeah,
had you
it's all-
first.
It's all good.
So Gina, my only comment on this is that out in the public, the stage 1 application has already been accepted by RIDE. So are there talking points or anything that if constituents come back to us and talk to us about, okay, well, I thought our stage 1 was already approved. Are we prepared to answer those questions in the community about why this timeline is now changed?
So I did the Q&A, so what I want to suggest is whatever, I believe, I thought that we covered that in the Q&A, but I can work to add a question. If there's something that I could say it differently, that would help, just take a look at that, because that went to the community too. And I haven't received any feedback other than people were like almost, some people said it was like it seems like a gift of time. And I'm like, that's exactly right. But in the end, if there's a question you have, I can add that to the Q&A and that will go public. That is public already, but the revision.
Yeah, I mean, if that letter that went out to the community this week, if we all feel that that is sufficient information and that's
Yeah.
clear,
I mean,
then I don't have any
No, I want to follow up on
Any
that.
ads? Okay, Tyler?
So the Q&A, question 4, why is the stage 1 application being resubmitted? It just says to keep our plan active and current, so it fully aligns with the scope of the community discussions. Are we really just trying to give the community more time to get together and talk about it? Or is there something, is there another reason why we're resubmitting it? Because if we've already submitted it and it's been approved and we're on track to get stage 2 submitted for September, why the resubmission?
So, you go.
Yeah,
You go.
I'll give you a chance to think. Hearing all the other discussion tonight, we're still focusing on the one school. Like, that's all our team is focusing on. And it's a restart of the clock so that the stage 2 can be done. And the problem, without having the land for certain,
All the land studies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's quite a lot of things. It's the environmentals, it's you know, checking the soils and the water table and as well as having a foundation study in your site plan. And it's a lot of sub-consultants. So they have to be brought on board and they've already been contracted by the designer, and then they have to set out and do the work. But we don't want them doing it twice. So if we have a piece of land we really, really are hoping for, and then send somebody out to go do all that work, and then that land doesn't come to fruition, we can't spend that money. So it has to be just a one and done. So there really needs to be a commitment about where the land is going to be, and then all of the subs will be set out to do all of the work. And that, I think, is all part of the process. And getting until September, I think, gives a really robust, really professional report. If we were to do it, you know, I'm from up north, and I have a term for that, when you set something up and it's not done all the way. So we don't want to do that. It's not professional. We want it to look good, and we want to save them money. And the stage one won't cost any more money because it was done last year, and I have to just replace in kind with reports that I already have for stage two. So it's really just a literal repackaging.
So if my understanding is correct, the whole reason we're resubmitting stage one is because of the land issue.
But what's required when we have, what's required to study on the land?
Right. So because we haven't identified that, because we haven't acquired it, that's the whole reason for the
We haven't
resubmission.
settled on one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that would be a better response.
I have to be very careful how I word
But
that.
it's understood, but saying, hey, we haven't identified and or acquired a piece of land yet, that's why we have to repackage and resubmit stage one. I don't think steps over any boundaries.
So, right, I would be really, he's having it in there.
It's okay, we all live in Rhode Island, we'll all understand.
I can't say,
Okay, that's fine.
You're
You don't
saying
have to say
things
anymore.
that I have to be careful about.
I won't say anymore.
Just, yeah.
Things that were discussed in executive
Okay.
session that
I
we
mean,
can't
that-
disclose at this point.
And I'm not asking you to disclose anything.
Understood.
But that's why I'm just saying it's, and not about a piece of land, it's about the right piece of land that will meet the requirement.
Sure.
And we have to have that study done, or stage two will say, for example, it'll say that it's incomplete. And none of us want to share anything that's incomplete.
Agreed. Agreed.
I'm trying to be very good.
Okay. Can we move on?
Yeah, I'm good.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, no.
Let's rock and roll. Okay.
Should we vote?
No, we have to vote.
We have to vote, Madam Chair. We have a motion and a second. We haven't voted.
We have a
yet.
motion and a second. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for waiting. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Deb.
I'm sorry. Okay, update on progress for a revised rubric for the superintendent's evaluation. So I have an update, and I know that Gina will weigh in as well. So just a quick overview. We all know that we did vote in November for the superintendent and I to work together collaboratively to put together a rubric for the superintendent's evaluation, with one of the goals being professionalizing the process and sort of bringing the process to an elevated level. There was a stalemate among this committee. So Gina and I, with your approval, decided to work together on this. And we've collaborated extensively up to this point on this item of developing a rubric. To give you an idea of the process, I reviewed the materials that Gina provided to all of the school committee members on this topic several months ago, which included, 1, a white paper created by the American Association of School Administrators entitled Evaluating the Superintendent. 2, a document entitled Building Administrator Professional Practice Rubric. 3, Rhode Island Standards for Educational Leaders. So those were all materials that Gina provided to our committee. In addition to those materials, I proactively researched the national standards on this topic. The National Policy Board for Educational Administration publishes, quote, Professional Standards for Educational Leaders, formerly known as the ISLIC standards, which provides a robust framework for effective educational leaders. And just so you know, ISLIC is short for Interstate School Leaders Licensure Consortium Standards. That's a tongue twister. I created a draft of the rubric, mostly based on the National Policy Board for Educational Administration Standards, and sent that draft to the superintendent. The superintendent reviewed the initial draft, added some items, revised some areas, and in the end, we were able to agree on a draft document.
So what we have done now is, now that the chair and I are aligned, we're going to ask John Anderson to review on behalf of the school committee to ensure that the process meets the legal requirements of the state legislation, meets the needs that the school committee has set forward, of what they want in the superintendent's evaluation, and that it reflects your prior approvals, legal considerations, and best practices for superintendents. So once John gives us his feedback, the chair and I will meet again, we'll review it, and then our goal is to have a draft in front of you in February. I mean, we'll give it to you before that, but to discuss it at that meeting.
That is our update. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Nope.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Moving on. Update of approval of budget transfers.
So moved.
All right, who said so moved first? All right, so Tyler, okay.
It was me.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
All right, Polly and Craig. All those in favor of approval of the budget transfer? We did have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the budget transfers? Unanimous.
We should serve alcohol after that.
Okay.
Can't do it in a school. It's
Oh,
against
boy,
the state
we're
law.
getting punchy. All right, consent agenda items for approval and vote. Do we have are we taking these all as a group, ladies and gentlemen? Is anything being pulled? Okay, we're taking these as a group. Yes.
I make a motion to move the remainder, but before I do, two things. I accept the minutes not being at the last meeting because I think Angela did an incredible job on the minutes. So with that being said, I would like to also acknowledge two donations. A donation of pizza strips to the Ashway Elementary School for their Holiday Bazaar event in December, a value of $215. And two, a generous donation from the Ocean State Bus Company of hats, gloves, and socks for students at Richmond Elementary School in December. Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Karen. All those in favor of the full consent agenda items? Unanimous? No, not unanimous? Okay, anyone opposed? Yes or no? Oh, any abstentions? Thank you, okay. Reports, Gina.
So, while I know you all want to get out of here, the superintendent reports are supposed to be important. So I'm going to try to make sure that I do my due diligence, but I understand you have the health and wellness to review on your own and all the other reports. I would like to focus on the strategic planning updates and the update of civics engagement, because those are going to be how your budget gets impacted in our strategic plan and how the school committee, the chair has asked, and many of you have asked, what does input look like if we're in a new strategic plan for those of you that may not have been here the first time around? So I want to make sure you understand how that looks, and if this is not something that you think will fly this year, then I would need feedback, because we have to make sure that we follow the state law, but that we're also thoughtful about how the school committee wants to be and provide their input. So as we prepare to sunset Vision 2026, Rhode Island requires us to update strategic plans every 3 years. We used to have the opportunity to do 5 or 3. The state law changed, and it must be every 3 years. It must be approved by the school committee now, no later than June 1st, to be able to be submitted to the Department of Education per the general law. Our work is underway, as you saw with FY27, and we do believe our budget reflects that we ensure continuity in the vision, coherence, and fiscal responsibility. And the strategic plan begins with our school improvement plans. So what the state does is there now is a statewide template for all schools to be able to not just use, but they're required to have certain data. So they must have academic goals that meet math, literacy, and science embedded in their school improvement plan. And obviously the laws that come to fruition, like MTSS, while I think we all agree doing what students need is important, it is part of the law, and our budget reflects the law to ensure our continuity. So I noted last month that the school improvement plan, our principals are underway right now in January and the beginning of February, reporting out to their SITs on their progress to their school improvement plan. We're meeting on Friday with all leaders, where they will then provide Dr. Camilla, myself, and their colleagues with updates based on individual school performance. We will do a comparison across the district schools, across the state schools, to ensure that the Vision 2029 draft that we work on reflects not just individual school needs, but an overall district-wide set goals to ensure that we meet all schools' needs. So how that looks for the next steps for the district's direction is that, to be clear, Vision 2029 is a continuation and a refinement of priorities launched in Vision 2026. So when we think about our school improvement and our goal setting, we want to ensure instructional improvement, fiscal stewardship, facilities planning, and long-range strategy, which sometimes we talk about as innovation, right? Think about how we can be thoughtful and creative. So, but by being fiscal stewards as well. So we want to make sure that, so what happens next is that as part of the process, our admins and SIT teams, once they do their review, we will present a draft to the school committee in March or April, officially at a meeting. You as school committee members this year, because it's now the second time the state has done this process. The first year it looked a little bit different, and it was more like you all were asked to send a liaison to us to ride. And now that we've all had sort of the training and the liaison, the ask is that we would share the draft with you. We'd give you some kind of a feedback tool where each member would share. We would summarize those, include them into the draft, and then March or April present to the public our final draft for review. And that's where typically you see like students come, teachers come, and they sort of explain to you what it looks like in their real life application. That's typically how we do it based on that. So if please make sure that if there's anything we need to touch base before that, we might want to add that to a meeting or a budget workshop to talk further, because that's an option as well. Following winter break, our February break, I would say you should begin seeing the draft, because we're in the process of reviewing our progress to date. So Dr. Camilla's presentation was a baseline of where we are, and then what you want to be able to look is that data and how we're meeting the needs based on the data that we saw in November. So that's the vision you'll see year one, and then basically what we expect by the end of year three, which is the 2029. Civics Engagement Summit, we had our first annual Civics Engagement Summit inaugural last year. It was very exciting. It was one of my favorite events of the year, and Mr. Whitaker and Ms. Hall were the two instructors at the high school, along with the admin team that supported that very important work to ensure that we are investing in our students understanding community and local government. And this year, it's the 250th celebration of the United States of America. So Charlestown has asked Charahoe to be a part of their committee a couple of years ago, and Richmond Hopkinton have not, but that's okay. But we have really found that our input into that 250-day celebration has allowed us to really think about our Civics Engagement Summit and how we can think about that as sort of our core focus for the year. And our students this year are now a part of the planning. Our juniors are giving input to Ms. Hall and Mr. Whitaker. And then they will then select two members of that group to then be part of our committee to plan, with our goal being the first week of March to be able to embark on our second Civics Engagement Summit, and really making sure that we have a learning opportunity and that it shouldn't look the same every year. We want it to evolve in a way that makes sense for our communities and our local governments, but the interest should be there. Students who are interested, juniors and seniors are where we started. That's where we're staying right now. But we also have a video that will go out to all of our students that I will share with the school committee that we created last year with Mr. O'Brien being our videographer to ensure that we could promote this differently for our students who are maybe interested. But they're chomping at the bit. We're proud that they want it done earlier, because their information was that in May, Mrs. Picard, we have AP exams and SATs in April, and don't do it then. We want to do this more, and I didn't do this, and I wish I did this. So we have taken that feedback, and we're trying it in March, and they're thinking even maybe next year, or the following year, we might try to do this more again earlier because of the big election. So I think it's amazing. The students push us every day to get better and better, and their creativity and their feedback is going to make our second Civics Engagement Summit really one to be proud of. So,
Thank you,
and
Gina.
please look at all the coming events.
Thank you. All right, school committee requests for future agenda items and legal opinions. Does anyone have anything that they would like to take up for future meetings?
Email you.
Okay. Email the chair.
Madam Chair,
And
I make,
Gina.
Madam Chair, I
And
make
Gina.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Good night.